Welcome everyone to day 3 of bLU Talk's Amplify Your Message. I decided to wear my blue today just because I keep forgetting to put the little icon in the corner there for blue. For those who have never come across bLU before, I'm going to grab one of the books. bLU stands for business, life, and the universe. And our belief is that it's all connected. So you'll see guests today, and of course me and my co-host as well, who believe wherever our topic is, wherever our focus is, whether it's business, life, universe, whatever, there's some parts that are all connected. And we like to focus on what that connection is. So who am I? I am your host, Laura Lake. I will always be your host, but I do have a guest co-host every day. And we'll get Gail to introduce herself in just a moment. So for those who don't know me, I talk about courageous connection. I have done all this stuff and things, posted the 17 million times on the 42 million platforms, and I didn't really feel connected. I felt disconnected. And what I realized is that most of us here, we're change makers. We're mess-to-message people. And what that means is that past version of me has been through something. Now I learned something. Now I'm trying to share that something. But if I forget to know, like, and trust that old version of me, there's a disconnect with me and my audience. But it takes massive courage to love that old version and to see it. So that's what I talk about. That's where I come from. Gail, can you tell us a little bit about you so that we know where you're coming from with your questions and comments and stories today?
Absolutely. And it's funny, Laura and I have never hosted anything together, but women come together like this, and I'm about connection as well. My specialty is mindset. I've been a business owner for a long time, a parent, a wife, and I just feel like it's the one thing that we can control. So my message is always about mindset and how you keep that mindset strong. It's like a muscle. It's about being around the right people. It's about making connections, because Laura's right. We're so disconnected, so distracted, and lonelier than we've ever been. And community and connection is what can change your mindset and keep it powerful and strong. I also believe that as women, it's time for us to step up and share with everyone the stories that we have, because that's what we're on this earth to do.
Speaking of stories, we have our first guest behind the scenes. Rebekah, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. So I did give you a little bit of insight, I guess, on how this interview is going to start. But let me grab my notebook because I need to write it down. I start every interview with the same question because I want to get to know you as the human being behind the business and behind the message. So today, who is Rebekah? And I have this question that will tell us so much about all of that before you ever tell us about all of that. So if you're ready, I'd love to ask. Okay. If you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Well, I think hello, everyone. Hi, Laura and Gail. Thanks for having me. So I think the most important thing to me would be authenticity. That people would see me as authentic. And another thing would be passionate. That I think people can see my passion about, well, life, but lots of things. And inspirational.
Ooh.
Oh. My dog is saying, can I come and be?
Oh, hi, fur baby.
I don't know. Maybe she can feel some nerves off me. She's like coming over going, what's going on, Mom?
That's okay. Anyway. We love the fur babies. So then the follow-up to this, and this is probably the hardest part of the interview, is you're like, oh God, you're making me think. Yes.
Okay.
The follow-up here is, how do those 3 words, authenticity, passionate, and inspirational, how do they play a key role in the core message that you have for people?
the thing about it is, I suppose the truth of the matter is, I don't know why I'm here. I've absolutely no idea. I'm just
in this
following.
interview or
Yeah.
on Earth?
No, in this interview now.
Oh.
I don't know why I don't know what, I have lots of messages. I have lots to say. But I don't really know what the message is, or if I've got hundreds of messages to give. All I'm doing is following the signs. You know, I'm following what the universe is showing me, and I'm taking the opportunities that it's putting in front of me, which is kind of my message. You know, so I'm just figuring it out as I go along. But when I look back on my life, it's what I've done naturally. Well, from a certain turning point when I kind of, you know, I went down, I had a lot of trauma in my early childhood, and ended up in an unhappy marriage, kind of the worst situation I could imagine myself in. I found myself in, and so after I dug my way out of that situation and decided, you know, that I could change my life. I didn't have to continue in the way that it had begun. And I don't think I knew what I was doing at the time, but when I look back on it, I just surrendered and opened my eyes to where am I going next? It was like I didn't have a clue. So I was just opening my eyes and looking around and going, what do I do? How do I do this? I don't know what to do. And things came into my life that led me, well, really to this point now. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, so I suppose that's the inspirational part, that perhaps my story could inspire somebody else who's feeling like the dark clouds over their head, that's feeling like they're on their knees and they have nobody and nothing to support them or to show them the way out of whatever situation they find themselves in. That's where I was. And maybe somebody else will go, I'm feeling like that now. Where do I go? And what do I do? And how do I do it? And, you know, the universe will show you if you ask. It's all there. But sometimes we just can't see it because all we can see is the darkness and the hopelessness and the self-pity, you know, and the self, you know, which also turns into, like, you know, it can turn into self-loathing and hatred and feeling unworthy of anything better in life. I definitely went through a long period of that, saying, oh, why did I even think that I was going to have a good life? This is maybe what I've been dealt and I just need to deal with it. Stop thinking I'm so special. You know, these were obviously the negative thoughts that kept me where I was. Yeah. And then at some point, that all changed. And I got out of my marriage. I had 3 small children. I had no money. In fact, I had negative money. And somehow 20 years later, my children are grown up. They're running my businesses. I have a childcare business, which they took over. I have a couple of grocery stores, you know, convenience stores, which my son-in-law is running. I'm getting an income from them and I'm free to do whatever I want. I also run, so this journey towards, I suppose, self-healing or finding myself has also led me through a plant medicine journey. So I have delved into plant medicine. many different types, and now facilitate plant medicine retreats. So, but I'm not here to promote my retreats. I'm not here to promote me or anything. So I think that's why it's I suppose, authentic, and I'm passionate about what I see has been my journey. I'm passionate about plant medicine and healing and supporting others. And I suppose really I just feel the urge to tell my story so that perhaps somebody else can find the peace, the love, the happiness that I found from within. It's not out there anywhere. Mm-hmm. It's right here.
Peace. May I reflect back to you what I've heard and what I've noticed so far?
Do.
Okay. Because I am so excited. All of this is aligning so synchronically. Whatever the word is right now. Synchronistically. Blah. We'll just spit it out. Because before we got on live, I was listening to a song called Surrender, which is about that whole like just release of the energy and all the expectations that we have to allow ourselves to be able to look to something new. And then you're telling me that you're not sure why you're here. And then you start going into what your message actually is, but you didn't realize that it was your message. So following the signs and taking opportunities as you go. Then I noticed that you don't see your genius, because what I do with people is they tell me they don't really have a name for what they do. They don't know how to describe what they do. They kind of do all kinds of different things. And I'm thinking in my head, you're here because you and I need to connect. This is my sweet spot and my niche. And then you start to answer your own questions that I would have asked you about, which was amazing, because what I get people to do is to start talking about that moment where things shift for you, where that surrender happened, and what the emotions were that you felt. Because it's really hard to talk about the things that happen to us. It feels really vulnerable, okay? Because it feels really personal. But once we start getting into the emotion, we're like, oh, now it's separating a little bit of the personal, and now we're reconnecting as human beings. But you told me that it felt like a dark cloud overhead. You're on your knees, the hopelessness, the self-pity, the self-loathings, the self-hatred. And now all of a sudden you skipped over the vulnerable part. You're like, 20 years later, something happened.
A few things happened in those 20 years, of course. Yeah.
But then you told me the other end, so the equal and opposite of some of those emotions, like the freedom, the self-healing, the finding self-peace and finding yourself. But now you're bringing in other things like plant medicine. So I want to go back to that piece that you skipped over just a little bit and tell me, what are some of those things that inspired you to surrender, that inspired you to get into plant medicine, that inspired you to make whatever changes that it was that you made? What was that mental shift that happened for you? That's your sweet spot.
Yeah. Well, even a few years before I ended up separating from my husband, and things were quite dire. Like financially, when you have small children and you're struggling to feed them and you can't really, everything just keeps on building and building and building, and you get deeper and deeper into this hole of, I can't see how I'm ever going to be out of this hole, or how I can be a good parent in this situation where I feel like I'm not providing. So the kind of, you get worse and worse about thinking about yourself, because, why can't I do this? Why can't? So anyway, I was in this dark kind of hopeless place. And the actual thing that first gave me that tiny little glimpse of hope was actually network marketing. So we're going back to like the early 90s, and I saw a network marketing plan And I went, oh my God, you mean like even without a big investment or without anything behind me, I can actually change my life. So I joined that company, and while on network marketing measurement, I can't say that we succeeded, right? But it changed my life because it introduced me, first of all, to hope, which I didn't have. I had no idea how anything was ever going to be different. And then the company recommended books. Now, I'd always been an avid reader, always searching for answers and truth. But I probably had, during all this depression time in my life, I probably gave up reading books as well. I'm sure I did. So, but I'd never read these kind of books, you know, Zig Ziglar and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the books that changed my life, made me understand myself, helped me to start to understand myself and others, was Personality Plus. I don't know if you ever heard it, but a really good book about understanding all the different personalities and things that make people tick. And so many books. Like I was just introduced to, you know, Deepak Chopra, through the books, and Wayne Dyer, and Real Magic was another book that really changed my life. And Napoleon Hill's
Think and Grow Rich?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, sorry. What was the other one before that? It'll come to me, because it was in that book where he said what the mind can believe, it can achieve. That phrase changed my thinking, because I went, oh, what I can believe, I can do. So it's my beliefs that I need to look at, you know. And that was 20 years ago, where I kind of just started, and I was just grabbing onto tiny little phrases that were like, oh, please let there be some kind of difference for me from how this life, you know, is going. So I grasped onto those. I worked really hard at the network marketing plan, but my husband just wasn't there with me. And it showed me also that I needed to move on my own, that I could do this, but I couldn't do it if somebody was dragging me backwards, right? So it's not the reason I left the marriage. There were lots of other reasons, right? But I'm just saying it was the thing that went, okay, if you want to get out of this situation, you've got to get out of this marriage, and you've got to do this. And everything changed then. Everything changed. I just changed my attitude. I picked up a line from one of the books, an affirmation that I said to myself 1,000,000 times a day, which was, if it's to be, it's up to me.
Ooh.
That got me through years, you know, and it got me moving when I felt demotivated, when I felt like I think it was too much, when I felt like I couldn't do whatever it was that was in front of me. I remembered whatever the mind can believe, it can achieve. And then I remembered, if it's to be, it's up to me. And at this time, these were just phrases. I didn't really believe them yet. You know, I just kept saying it over and over. I had it written down everywhere. And if I'd get doubtful, I'd go, okay, I can do. Okay, where's my belief about this? Let me see. Can I make myself believe what I really want out of life, you know? So anyway, a few things changed then. Like I started, I think it was probably from one of the books or something like that. I thought, okay, you need to give in order to receive. And if you give, I'd read a lot of books about money as well, because I was really in poverty for years. So I read, so I knew that in order to prove to yourself that you believe in abundance, you need to give. So this was, I don't know if I read that or if I thought it, but I thought, okay, So I started off, now bear in mind, like I didn't have money till the end of the week every week. When I say I was living week to week, it was like 5 days. I'd have 2 days a week with no money until the next money came, you know. And I started giving €2 a month to a charity. And I thought, I think I could probably just about manage without that too. It might have actually been pounds back then. I was in Ireland. I am in Ireland now. Anyway, so I started giving that, and it wasn't about giving the money. It was about the energy behind the belief that I could afford that, you know, but it was also giving without, like I gave to concern. That was my first one. So it was, you know, far away. It wasn't that I was going to expect anything back. So I think that's very important as well. It's not about giving in order to receive. It's about, for me, it was giving to prove to myself that I believed in abundance. And so as much as I believed in abundance, I was going to achieve it. So, so then I started volunteering, and I also thought, right, I need community. You know, I need people around me, and I didn't really have any friends. I had been so stuck in this marriage and, you know, controlled by it and everything, that I didn't really get out and make friends. So anyway, started joining local community groups and volunteering, and again, not expecting anything. I just wanted to be part of a community, which I'd never really been. I'd moved around a lot in my life from many different countries. We can talk about that if we have time at some point, but basically, it was just about being part of the community, and I wasn't expecting any more than like feeling part of the community. But basically, you know, I ended up through that community work joining a group to open a preschool, a community preschool.
Shoo it away. It's a fly, I think.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. So what was I saying?
Community. You reached out for community.
Yeah. So I joined a committee to open a preschool that was needed, a community preschool in the area. And to cut a few years into a sentence, I ended up getting all the training that I needed, all the understanding, all the thing. I had studied in college to teach, like elementary school. But when I moved to Ireland, I didn't have any Irish. So you need Irish to teach here. So that was part of the whole poverty thing as well, that I just was like, oh, I don't have any, I can't speak Irish, so I can't teach. So I ended up, like, instead of going and looking for another job, when I first arrived to Ireland, I went and worked in a fish and chip shop. Mm-hmm. Like, that was where my thoughts of myself were, you know, of my abilities. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with working in a fish and chip shop. It served me well, got me through each week for a few years. But anyway, at this point, by the time I was had joined these voluntary committees, I remembered that I had a bit more education than I realized, or ability. And anyway, I ended up opening a preschool. So I only opened that preschool. I had no big, huge dreams, really. I just wanted to everything was always just about getting out of that little situation I was in and try to get to another one and see then where that would lead. And so this was the surrender. Like, I never planned on opening a preschool, but because of the voluntary group, and then I realized I had all the skills, and they'd updated my training, and I'd done management training and all this, because then I opened, there were 6 of us on the committee that started this preschool, but by 6 months before the preschool was to open, they all had left. So it was only me.
Aww.
But now I see what a blessing that was, because I had to do it all. I didn't fold and say, oh, we're not going to do this now then, because I can't do it on my own.
Yeah.
I just, and so now I can see the resilience there and I didn't give up. I just went, oh, I'll just, everybody else has left. Well, I better get this done then. And of course, the most of the hands-on work was the last 6 months. And then I had agreed to the committee that for the next year, I would manage the preschool, like from a distance, because I actually was working in another daycare in the mornings by this point, which I'd also got that position through the voluntary work. Like everything just came to me. I didn't go seeking anything. And so I managed it from a distance, like just checked in with staff every week, hired the staff, did all those things. But then all of a sudden I realized I had all those skills. So eventually I went, okay, and I was volunteering on a committee to open a school called Educate Together. And because I didn't like, not that I didn't like the system here, but most of the schools here in Ireland are single-sex schools, which I wanted my daughters to go to a co-educational school and a non-denominational school, because all of the schools here back then were mainly Catholic. And if you wanted to not go to a Catholic school, you had to be another religion, but we weren't any religion, so we didn't get in any list. My kids didn't get in any list for schools, Anyway, just a technical thing, 'cause I called myself spiritualist, and that wasn't, it was at the bottom of the list. So anyway, went on a committee to help open this school. And then when they opened it, they had a spare room to rent. So that's really, then I went, okay, I have my skills. I have my management training. I know how to do it. There's a room here, and they gave it to me cheap because any funding they got was great. And so I rented the school, and I did the thing, and that was only 3 hours a day. But then gradually parents said, oh, can you stay an extra hour so that I can pick up my other daughter an hour later and you keep that? Yeah. Oh, can you stay an extra 2 hours? So each year I kept expanding the thing without recognizing that I was doing anything, Then a few years later, they said they needed the room back. The school was expanding. And I went, oh dear, I've got to find a place then. And it just happened, so the universe just got, so gradually now I have 3 daycares that are running from, birth to 12 years old. And it's been very successful, although there's been many, many difficult times. I always believed that I would be able to pay every bill and pay wages for whoever I employed. And there were many, many times, especially the first 10 years, where I had no idea where that money was coming from at the end of the week, but I trusted and surrendered, and it came from all sorts of places, and I never, ever, I never failed to reach the financial goals I needed to. And then gradually, after 10 years, I started making more money than I'd ever dreamt of. Honestly, I was like, what is going on here? How could this happen? Wasn't my plan, but it just happened. And I'm just so grateful. And I'm not special. It's not me. It's just being open to seeing what possibilities are there, taking risks. I took many risks. I've invested a load of money, lost a load of money since then, but it's okay. I'm not beating myself up about that, because it's not about the money. And I think that's one of my biggest messages as well, that, when I changed my life around financially, I wasn't chasing money. If you chase money, you're always chasing, right? And you never get a hold of it. But I was dreaming about the lifestyle. I was dreaming about taking my daughters to Disneyland. I was dreaming about sunny holidays and a house in Spain, and dreaming about freedom, actually, was my main thing. And here I am now, 56 years old, retired, living the life of my dreams, like I have a yacht in Spain, I have a camper van outside the door to go where, like, I have a house, and my children are all running these businesses that are paying me every week. And then I'm able to follow my passion, one of my many passions, which is supporting other people to change their lives, mainly through the use of plant medicine, but also through the integration and support that I can provide, having been through the journey myself.
You know what I love about your story and what you're saying, Rebekah, is that, you know, we've all been in those moments where we think, how did I get here? Like I did everything right. And maybe we didn't, but and I love that you just started living your life intentionally and it gave you your power back.
Yeah.
You know, and then the power that you gave that gave you is like kryptonite to shame, because it's so shameful to be in a place where you can't feed your kids and you can't, like, I've been in that. We have very similar stories. And so that faith in and then you get faith in yourself. And then once you have, it's like the stages, and not a lot of women or people can get to that next level of like, through the shame, get my power back, and then have faith in myself. So bravo to you.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I keep saying it's unbelievable. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And then I went, do you know what? It's so believable. It's so believable that everybody else can believe it too, you know, for themselves. And yeah. So I think, so then, like, I mean, I literally, like, I had like a psychic reading last December that said, like, you're going to change your, you know, you're going to do it, because I was retired last September, living the life and going like, and then after a few months, I went, I'm a bit young for kind of like, you know, I mean, my retreats are only every couple of months. They don't take up, they're not a full-time thing. I'm like, maybe there's a bit more to do. And then I got this message that said, you're going to go into another sort of business that's going to be completely different to anything you've ever done before. But you're going to use all the skills that you've learned over your up to now, and you're going to be able to utilize all of those skills in this one career. And I thought, oh God, I wonder what that's going to be. And the next day I get, actually, I'd already had the email, but hadn't opened it. It was like on an email that I never opened. And it opened by accident, right?
Yeah.
Onto an invitation to join bLU Talks.
Yay.
And I just went, oh, is that what I'm going to do? Okay.
Okay.
And that was that. I signed up, and here I am. I don't know, you know, all the last 6 months I've been going, well, what am I going to talk about? I don't know what I'm supposed to talk about. I suppose I better just get on there and figure it out. Because I'm like, at first I was like, I really want to spread the word about this amazing work that is being done around the world with plant medicine. Like, I want to spread that message. And then I was like, that's not my only message. Like, I think I have the bit about business, the bit about, you know, all of it. All of it comes down to loving yourself, learning how to love yourself. And you know, I was seeking always for this sense of belonging and this unconditional love that seemed so elusive to me. And I found it within. And that's I didn't know where, you know, I was looking everywhere out there going, where is this thing for me? And now that I found it, it's like not needing it from elsewhere, but wanting to connect with that frequency within others, you know, and allow others to see that in themselves. Show them the way, be a guide. I don't know what I'm just surrendering.
To me, it sounds like your message is about surrendering to what we think the outside world wants from us, surrendering to who we actually are, learning to love and trust that, because the opportunities and the signs are everywhere. Like, everything that you told us, that's all weaved into every piece of it. And when you want to talk about plant medicine, that's an expression of that. When you want to talk about building a successful business, that's an expression of that.
Yeah.
And probably all the other messages that you have are an expression of that core message. So now that you kind of have a baseline of what your core message is, you can talk about every single one of those as long as you keep coming back to that core message. And now people will love you, Rebekah, for you, no matter what expression you have next. Just like an artist, they love the artist for the way that the artist exists, not necessarily every single piece of their artwork.
Interesting. Thank you for that, Laura. Yeah.
Isn't that magical? This is the magic that I like to pull out here. And I wanted to at least share and show that magic back at you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So at this point, I want to know, and so does everybody else, where do we find you? And of course, your favorite way to communicate.
Well, I'm on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. I wouldn't say I have a very or any presence really online up to this point, because I've had no reason, or I don't know, I just but I have profiles there. Like what most people contact me through WhatsApp. So my phone number is actually the best way to contact me. I'm terrible for emails. I don't see them. I have too many email addresses and too many emails, and I can easily miss a message. Yeah. But like in all my retreats, the follow-up care, is all through WhatsApp, which I find really useful. Of course, we've been using WhatsApp in Europe longer than you have over in the States, but it's brilliant. You can do your video calls and your texting, your voice notes and everything. I like the one-to-one, but yeah, people can contact me through any of the other. I think I'm Rebekah Donnelly on Facebook, and then that will lead to elsewhere.
And we have about a minute left, so I like to hold space at the end, just in case there's something on your head or in your heart that you need to share. So what would you love to leave people with?
I think it's the idea that no matter where you find yourself in any moment in life, it doesn't have to be like that for any longer than that moment. It can change in the very next moment, in every way, and it's a matter of being open to the idea that there's another way of seeing things. Most things that we believe about ourselves is a perception, and it's a perception that is reflected through others. So it all depends who you're surrounding yourself with, what idea you have about yourself, because it's the others that mirror it back to us all the time. We can't see ourselves the way that others can see us, like what you were doing there, Laura, mirroring back to me what I had been saying with, and so we all need others to reflect, but it depends the people that you surround yourself with, what they're going to reflect back to you. And it's not always true. It's always okay for you to reject what somebody else sees and go and look inside, and you don't need plant medicines to do that. But if you're really struggling to find your way inside to a place inside, they can be very helpful to just open up those blockages to allow you to go inside. And it also means that you have the support and love of a community behind you, cheering you on. And and of course, in changing that perspective, then you can surrender and go, oh yeah, I've got everything I need right here. I've
Yeah.
got everything. All I need to do is allow it. And that's part of the surrender.
Thank you for that, Rebekah. It makes me want to write a note, and my sticky notes are gone, that just says everything you need, and then just draw a little bow and give it to people.
Yeah.
So, Rebekah, I'm going to call this the official close of our interview. So thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me.
Now, we do have about 3.5 minutes left, and I like to use this extra time because that's for online TV, and we're cut off at certain amounts. And I don't want you to be cut off mid-sentence. So we use this extra few minutes to reflect on our conversation. So I'm going to start with Gail. Gail, what is something that stood out to you during our conversation today with Rebekah?
Oh, I think I've already told her that, I think young women need to hear from us that there is a way to figure everything out, because the loneliest place to be is in that shame and failure. And they need to see those of us that came off the other side, because, it all looks pretty and successful at the end, but nobody knows what happened in the in-between time. And those are powerful stories to share to our daughters and to their daughters, and, even to men. But
yeah,
that's our purpose.
What's something that stood out to you, Rebekah?
I think it's just another example of the many synchronicities that show themselves to me every day. Having Gail here as the co-host on the day that I'm being interviewed seems very significant to me, because our stories are quite, synchronistic, and we can relate to each other. And as you said, Laura, I know that you are very much about emotions and getting in touch with those. And if I'm honest, that's the work that I do in my plant medicine retreats, is reconnecting us with our emotions. Yep. And it's through the emotions that we can surrender, because unless we are in touch with our emotions, then we don't see the map. The emotions, I call it our Google Maps of our life.
Yep.
Because the emotions show us where you're more passionate, that's where you go. If you feel passionate about something, follow it. If you feel uneasy about something, maybe it's not for you. But you need to kind of rekindle that relationship with your emotions before you can trust. It's a word we haven't used yet, but it's a word that I use. You have to trust in order to surrender. So there's that journey to self-love and self-trust that allows you to then sit back and say, show me the ride.
Show me the ride. So one of the things that stood out to me was, I liked your subtle but yet list of things that you did to get out of it. And number one was that you chose you. That's one of the biggest lessons that I've had to learn, was to choose me, which was really, really hard. Hence the surrendering and the self-trust. But then you also reached for community, which is most of why I love the bLU Talks community so much. Because it's not just people that I want to grow up to be like. It's a community of people who get me in my different ways of thinking. They get me on the life, they get me on the business, they get me in the universe, hence bLU, right? And I feel like it's family here, instead of just people I have one thing in common with, which feels so good. Yeah. So again, thank you so much, Rebekah. Such a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's it's been fun. Let's see where it leads. Who knows?
Definitely. You're still on mute, Gail. Okay. Thank you, Rebekah. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Now we do have our next guest behind the scenes. Nick, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Thank you. I am loving the plants. Is that what my little plant over here is going to grow up to be like?
I don't know. We bought them this size, so I don't think they grow. Nope. Not going to grow that size.
Okay. I was like, because it would be really cool if it would.
Well, the secret is, you see, you don't wait for them to grow. You buy them full grown and fake. So you don't have to tend to them. They're just always the same, hyper consistent. Isn't that what we're all after in life?
Maybe I just want to have a conversation with my plant so it'll grow a little bit more. It's all good. Nick, I like to start off every conversation just by shaking things up a little bit. So I have a research question.
All right.
That gets me past your little elevator pitches or pre-programmed stories that you may have said over and over for other interviews or other bios. So here is my question. If you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Keeps on going.
Oh, you're going to give me a sentence. Okay.
Yes.
Keeps on going. Every once in a while, I do get tricked into an entire sentence, but it's all
well, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to break the norms, and I wouldn't be authentic to my message if I wasn't absolutely goofy, outside the box, and hopefully the funnest interview you're going to have today.
I don't know. Who knows? Well, we don't know where this is going to go. So I think you already started on my follow-up question, which is, how do those 3 words, keeps on going, how do they play a key role in the core message that you have for people?
Yeah, I think that it's such an important and impactful part of life to understand that you can't give up, because I think sometimes we get this concept that, like, if I just quit, that it'll be over, but life doesn't work like that. It will just keep coming. And so you have to, my big thing is perseverance, and that's continuing on in spite of. That's what the purest definition from my point of view of perseverance is. And so you have to really develop that to learn more about yourself, that we really do have this strength to get through these things. And more often than not, it's a limitation we want to try to put on ourselves as opposed to having to deal with things. So going along with my message, keeps on going, means I just wake up every day with perseverance, understanding that things are probably going to go awry at some point, but you just have to kind of dig in the trenches and continue on in spite of what's going on around you.
So where did this message come from? I'm assuming there's a story behind it that's personal to you.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in a second. But okay. Laura, Gail, I have a question for both of you today.
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
Is Nick Volinchak looking good today or what?
I'm wondering what it says all over your shirt. Yes.
Well, let me tell you, I've been wondering for several years since I got it. I don't know if it actually has a message or not. And there's actually, while it is a I like to use in my speech, that.
Is that his internet or mine? Okay.
Am I back?
Yeah, you were cutting in and out for a moment.
Yeah, so because because life is how it is, as I was setting my whole rig up after testing it last night, at 10:36, the internet promptly decided that we're done here. We're checking out for the day. We're not going to work. So I had to fire off a nervous email to you saying, hey, I don't know what's going to go on here. So I'm hoping that we stay live. I have good internet. I don't buy cheap stuff. But yeah, that's just one of those things where, like, I could have gotten 10 years ago, I would have absolutely probably broken something, but at the very least would have gone on a profanity-laced tirade that would make the father in A Christmas Story look like an amateur. But, I just kind of realized that, hey, things happen. You get tested and you could deal with it a positive way, or you can deal with it a negative way. And there's already so many negative influences in life as it is that I'm just choosing more and more often to try to deal with things from a positive perspective.
Well, that seems in line with your message.
It is. And to answer your question, which I disrupted, then forgot the question you asked me, it really ties in with my message, because of my background. I think that, you know, I went through a lot of tumultuous periods in life, lost my mother very young, very unexpectedly as well. It wasn't like she dealt with an illness for 5 years. It was like we found out she had cancer mid-September of 1992, and by the end of October, on the 25th, she passed. I mean, it was a very, very aggressive form of cancer. She had a hysterectomy in May of that year. And at the, you know, when they do that stuff, they test you to make sure you're healthy enough to go into it. And they didn't find anything that they found suspicious. So it was like a very traumatic situation. My father, I don't love talking about it, but I'm going to. My father was abusive. It was, as at the time, I thought it was because I was doing something wrong, or, you know, I hate to say things like this, but it was like a lot more acceptable back then, even though it shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
I've come to learn that he just couldn't understand his own grief and how to deal with it, and that was his outlet.
Yeah.
But anyway, it ended up becoming a drug addict, homeless by the time I was 21. And I come from an upper middle class area. I'm not a person who didn't have opportunity. I'm not a person who didn't have every chance in the world. I'm a person who made choices, bad choices, again and again and again and again. And I ended up at the Rescue Mission in Mahoney Valley, which is a homeless shelter in Youngstown, Ohio. And I was able to, you know, undergo a transformation there. And I ended up working there for 10 years roughly after. And that really exposed me to, and I did work mostly with men for obvious reasons, and which is why I continue to work with just men. My message, my speeches, I think are impactful for anybody who listens to them. But I think due to the emotional vulnerability required in kind of like the one-on-one coaching I want to do, you don't want, you know, a lot of women who go through these situations and need people to talk to aren't getting that emotional support from anywhere else. And I think oftentimes where men are more carnal, women are more emotionally based. And if a man is the only man that's giving her emotional support, they can misconstrue signals and things like that. So just to kind of like be transparent and clear, you know, that's why I really work with men. So yeah, that is a lot of where my message comes from. It comes from my personal experiences, and then my secondhand experiences working with people who were down and out for a variety of reasons.
That's quite the story.
Oh, we're just getting started.
I know that every single person here has their own version of like countless little stories or a bigger story. Like we've all got something, but to know some of a person's story means that we get to know more of the human being, which is the whole point of these interviews. It's like, yes, your message is important. Yes, your business is important, but also who is Nick? Because if we understand you a little bit better, then whatever expression or next lesson you're going to have in business or next skill you're going to try to sell, now we understand where you're coming from versus you just being this skill for hire. I was like, no, we want to be treated as a human being, which is what you were just telling us.
Yeah. And I think coming from a marketing background, I'm exposed to the dirty side of that. As I've kind of grown up, and believe me, I'm not really an adult. I'm just that by pure definition. But, you know, my wife and I were able to kind of start our own marketing agency, and we've got to work with a lot of interesting people, a lot of interesting stories, and really help people achieve what their life's ambitions were. But especially in coaching, one of my rage against the machine moments is that there are so many people who want to commoditize like traumas and situations where people need to come to them for help and support. And you see it all the time where you talk through with these coaches and they're like, okay, well, I want to have a low end offer that's, you know, an $80 to get people in the door. Then I want to have like a little more of an intricate offer for people who are willing to spend $299. And then I want to have, you know, a mastermind that spends $900 a month, and then people who want one-on-one get $2,500. And it just starts to feel like, so are you doing this because you are being authentic to your message, or are you doing this because you're trying to enrich yourself? And so from my perspective, I've always hated that. And as I've gone into this, I've kind of told myself that I'm going to work the reverse process, where I only offer one-on-one coaching, because to do that, it needs to be meaningful. You need to be super connected with the people you're working with. It takes a lot of time and effort to really work through what they're going through, what they need in the moment, and understanding that it can't just be a copy paste from the last person you talked to. Those experiences need to be very unique to their life and where they're at. So that's kind of the perspective I'm taking on things. And what I want my differentiator to be is, I'm not here for the money. I want to be able to share my story. I have a vehicle that I'm lucky enough, in comparison to, I think, some of the other people, that is able to put food on my family's table, that is able to keep a roof over my house. So now this is about, for me, a situation to be able to really help to give back to people who really need to hear the message.
I love that so much, because it is questioning not just what you should do. You should speak, you should create a course, you should do an ebook, all the shoulds, they're everywhere. But knowing how you work as a human being and what your specific audience actually needs from you, in the way that both of those things come together, is so very important. I've been doing the same thing in my business, and I'm like, while I like the one-on-one coaching, I also need to be very mindful of my own energy in that, because it can be very draining very quickly. And I have to do so much work behind the scenes to make sure that I am in that space to not only hold my own crap, but to hold, the heaviness of someone else as well. And so I've been like, okay, how do I create offers that serve in the way that I want to serve and can be sustainable at the same time? And that's really what you're talking about, is working in a way that's sustainable for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it ultimately comes down to being, I use the word so much, authentic. And people, especially, psychologically right now, people buy people. And so I know personally, when I see something, I'm kind of a soul diver, where I try to look at, like, do I really feel they're being authentic? Or as I'm going through the thing they're trying to sell me, is it always just, every step of the way is just the extended hand? And it's like, I fully understand that people need to make money and all of that stuff, but you lose some of the message when that just seems to be the main focus of what it is you're doing. And especially, I know it's for everybody, right? I was lucky enough to speak at MIT this past weekend, which was awesome. Shameless plug there. And I was able to listen to, coming where I'm coming from, knowing I'm dealing with just men, I was able to hear kind of like the opposite side of the version. Someone named Irina spoke, and she has a bunch of different things she's doing, but she's really working to empower women, especially over the age of 40, who have done so much giving in their life and need to start receiving. And so I know that it's evident on the men's side, just from dealing with, 10 years of my own hellish experience, 10 years of other people's hellish experiences. But it's also important to understand that it's visible on the other side as well, that we're a broken society. As much as we keep making these advancements in medicine, technology, all of these things, somehow life on a day-to-day basis continues to get more and more difficult. It isn't what it was 30 years ago. I actually read somewhere that people who were buying homes in the last housing crisis were like 39 years old. People who are buying homes right now are the same people. So, think about it. That wealth hasn't moved to the next generation. It's stayed static where it's at. It's hard. It's hard to live right now because there's so many external forces that cause mental health issues, who knows what's going into the food that we're consuming, and the cheaper you buy it, the more you've got to be concerned about what you're putting in your body. So I think that we're a culture that's broken, and we really need to start working together to move the healing process a lot faster along.
Yeah. I think that ties in with my definition of business, at least the people who are gravitated toward Blue Talks. Because for me, it's human beings helping other human beings to be the human beings they want to become. So if we take out the human part, what really is business, which is kind of where all of these automations are going, it feels, whether we intend to or not, to remove some of that level of humanity. And we try to personalize it with all the data, but again, it's data. Data without emotion is meaningless. It has no meaning. So if you understand the emotions and the human aspect, now we can give more meaning to each piece of the data. So we can hopefully personalize better. But without that human touch, it makes it increasingly and exponentially more difficult.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But you know what? I'm ready. Do you have some questions for me? I feel like I could go on these tangents and just like talk and talk and talk, but I know you have stuff planned, and
No.
Okay, great.
That's the first two questions, and then the last one, and then everything else is let's see.
Well,
where
that's perfect, because this is like a perfect fit for me then. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think that one thing I'll kind of reflect back to is how I asked you a question when I first started.
And then it cut off, so I don't remember.
Oh no, does Nick Volinchak looking good today or what?
Oh,
I start that off. That's always like the thing I start off with. That message comes from a friend of mine. I'm sure there's going to be questions that come off of this without a doubt. But after I got clean-ish, I will always stipulate that I still drink on occasion. I have always been a firm believer that everybody has to find their own path, right? There's no just like, this is how everybody has to do it. And so I try not to be a hypocrite in saying things like I'm clean or whatever, because I know that that definition to some people means total abstinence, and that's just not where I'm at. But anyway, once I managed to get through the homeless situation, my perspective on life changed, because it was really I should probably be dead now. And there were many, many, many times by my own decisions or situations that I was put in that I should have been. But I loved professional wrestling. And you can't tell because I'm sitting down. But if I was standing up, I'm 6'5", I'm 250 some pounds. I've got some heft to me. I could have been a professional wrestler. But it just never lined up correctly for me. So I thought the next best thing to that would be running my own professional wrestling organization. And so starting in 2007, I ran a company called Championship Wrestling Experience. And we mainly toured around the Youngstown, Ohio area. I can't use tour seriously. We went to various locations in a 20-mile radius and ran roughly from 2007 to 2011. Super cool experience. So many of the people that worked on our shows are now in the WWE. They're in TNA. They're in AEW. So some of these guys have gone on to be pretty good size stars and household names. There was, and actually, I have a very good story. I don't know if it'll be here that I tell it or on another platform within Blue Talks, but I have a very good Jake the Snake Roberts story. And I know Jake is going to be, I don't know if that's come out yet, but he's going to be involved in some capacity. And I know I'm going to be involved in some capacity with what he's doing with Blue Talks. So maybe we can save that for a few weeks, months down the year when it makes more sense. But I was always an amazing talent evaluator. I could see the qualities that made someone like a superstar. I felt like I always had it. And there was one guy in particular, man, when he got on the mic, he just had this look. He postured his body a certain way. He got a certain smirk on his face, and he looked into the crowd and would say, "Is sweet and sour Larry Sweeney looking good today or what?" And the crowd, if he was coming out as a heel, which is the bad guy, the crowd would boo incessantly. If he was working as a baby face, the crowd would cheer. But regardless, he had this ability to just turn the fans to mush and be able to just mold them however he wanted to. And that really, in entertainment, is that superstar quality.
Yeah.
And he and I clicked, and I became close-ish at various points in time with people who were working for us. He and I had this, it was like kindred spirits type thing where I think we both understood the darkness that was brewing inside of us. And I always tried to stay in touch with him. He wrestled and he was starting to get, work his way up into bigger companies. And I was super, super excited for him. I made him our first champion. He was the guy I wanted to put everything behind. And monetarily, it just ended up not working out to where we would continue to use him. He kind of stepped away from wrestling in like 2009-ish, but I would message him on Facebook. We would talk. I worked midnight shifts a lot at the Mission. So, I would call him and we'd have conversations. Sometimes it would go months in between hearing anything from him, but he would always pop back in and be like, "Hey, Nick, haven't been ignoring you. Just needed some time to myself." I always just tried to stay on top of him because I felt like there was just so much potential there. And he I guess maybe even vicariously, even though I was much bigger than him, he was not a huge guy. I felt like I was vicariously living through him because he reminded me so much of myself. And at the end of 2010, he seemed to have everything figured out. He was making a comeback in wrestling. And then one day in 2011, I got a call and it was, he ended his life. And it was, I tend to over romanticize things to some extent where I love everybody and everybody's my best friend and things like that. But I've always been realistic with like, he was not my best friend, but he was someone I always just tried to keep in touch with. And I would try to, especially as my years of overcoming my challenges were becoming, higher and higher in number, I always tried to just tell him like, "I'm there for you. I want to be able to help in any way I can." And he was always, "I appreciate it, but everything's fine," as many people do. And so to some extent, I felt like I let him down. I feel like some people, a multitude of people were there to pull me back off of my own personal ledge. And I just wasn't able to do it for him. But I really, have kind of undertook this mentality that even though he wasn't able to write his next chapter because of an impact he had on my life, I'm able to continue mine. And maybe through my work, his portion of the story is able to reach somebody who really needs it in the moment. And he can vicariously through me, like I lived vicariously through him, start helping people in a way he needed it. So that's kind of one of the ethos behind my microshift movement, and the idea that so often we in life look at like, my mom died and that's a huge, yes, my mom dying was a huge thing, but it didn't necessarily end up having the overall life impact that a small, minute conversation had, because it made me do something. And for me, Larry Sweeney was one of them. And when I talk very specifically about 5 situations. And basically at the time, all 5 of these people were strangers. 2 of these people, I have no idea what their name is or where they're at or if they're still living today. 2, unfortunately, 3 actually, unfortunately, are deceased. But, it's about those. It's really about understanding how those small things that we do in life can have such a big impact on the people around us. And so that's why I try, like, if I go to the grocery store and I see an old lady, I don't hesitate. I just go put groceries in her car, because not only does it make her day easier, but my hope is that she's able to take that and pass it along to someone else who needs it. And if we all cultivate this same kind of energy, and not expecting something in return, but if we all cultivate this energy, like, exponentially the world would get better fast, if we just approached it with less selfishness. So that's kind of the ethos behind what I'm trying to do and how I convey my message. And it was really cool being able to stand up at MIT and talk through these 5 things and know that at the time, and even for a lot of them afterwards, they didn't know they had this impact on me. But it just goes to show you that it doesn't matter. You don't do these things for what could be, or someone coming to say thank you, or getting some kind of applause. You just do it because we're all human beings. We're all running the same race, and let's try to help each other cross the finish line in the best way possible.
Yep. Ooh. There's a few stories I'm thinking of that embody that same idea. And just one of them really quickly is, I used to live in a condo building, and the lady that parked next to us, she was the old lady on the main floor. But when I would go out and shovel, I would shovel our spot, I would shovel her spot, and I would shovel the neighbor's spot, just because. And then if I couldn't go out and they went out first, the neighbor on the other side of me, they would shovel their spot, our spot, and the old lady's spot. And it got to the point where we're like, who's going to go out first? Who's going to shovel the old lady's spot? Because we knew every Thursday she went grocery shopping. And so her spot better be clear as soon as we get up on Thursdays, so that she could go out with no problems.
Would you set your alarm for like 2 a.m. just so that you could be the person out there?
It didn't get that bad, no, but it was a joke between the two of us for sure.
No, and it's good. And I think that's where we started to struggle as a society somewhere along the lines where we stopped looking at what's best for society in general, and it became what's best for me and my family, and then eventually it just became what's best for me. And unfortunately, that's just not how civilizations work. It is a combined effort, and you're never going to have a situation where everybody's on the same page, but you're trying to make sure that overall you're looking out for what we feel like is best for society in general. And I think that is a message we need to really get back to, is it's for the greater good, not me, but thee.
Yeah. I want to shift gears just a little bit into the ways that you have decided to share your message. You mentioned being on stage at MIT. Did you always see yourself as a speaker, or was that something that you needed to learn or get over in order to do so?
So this is a kind of an in-depth answer, as you should expect from the 20-some minutes we've talked already. I'm not short-winded, but when I was in school, I was the type of person who a teacher could ask, like, what's 2 + 2? And I wouldn't raise my hand, just in the off chance that somehow while I was asleep, it became 5. And I wasn't aware. I didn't get the memo. So I was really, 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 really shy. Unfortunately, you lose a lot of dignity and pride when you become a homeless drug addict. So that was a shifting point. And then also when you have to shower with 54 other dudes in a group shower, you start to realize, like, well, me being afraid to open my mouth and say something is like the least of the concerns of things that I'm going.
Yeah. Just give him a moment. That's fine. It happened to me earlier this
internet
week.
Provider is going to get I'm going to get a free month. I will talk my way into that. Anyway, big picture, I ended up becoming an on-character role for my wrestling company. I played the Vince McMahon, the owner character. So that was my first, like, hey, I'm going out in front of people and talking.
Yeah.
And after I went through the mission, I knew pretty much immediately this is what I wanted to do. However, as someone who I do believe I have generally a good feel on, like, how people in society react. And I was like, you haven't done anything that would make other than, you know, getting off of drugs, you haven't done anything that people would be like, oh, wow. And I'm not making enough money yet because people are so, you know, superficial based in everything that goes on in this world, that I was like, well, I have to achieve a certain level of X. And what I started noticing is those goalposts constantly moved as the years went by. It became like, well, I'm doing good now, but I need to be doing even better. And then it was a really weird situation where a couple of months ago, right before we went on vacation, my marketing company, someone with Corey's email address filled out our footer contact form. And so I was like, oh, okay, so maybe this person wants marketing or whatever. And I sent him an email, and he ended up kind of like just talking to me all about speaking. And I was like, well, I've never really raised my hand and said I wanted to do this. But I was also like, you know, sometimes things happen for a reason. And even if you're not expecting them, and even if it's not supposed to, has no reason for occurring. So I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to be 65 years old telling myself, oh, I need to be X, Y, Z before I can get out there and talk to people. And I've already given up 10 years of potentially helping people find a better version of themselves. And now it's time to just move forward with this. So I kind of came in, moved along very quickly. Not like there's a learning process or something like that, but like, I was like, I want to do MIT because I don't love flying. So it's the closest place I can drive for the upcoming future. And it just, I think I did it like this just because I like to challenge myself to, you know, to get a little bit uncomfortable, because that's when you really start to find the most change. So yes, long-winded answer of saying I did see myself doing this. It just took quite a ways of winding roads to get me to the point where I'm finally wanting to do it and actively doing it.
But that's the same thing for our listeners too.
Yes.
Whether they're live or on the replay, they're like, I have a message. I don't always know how to articulate that message. But then if they were never a speaker, are they the type who could have an anxiety attack on stage? They want to know how to get over that because their message is so important. Or maybe they're like me, where a teacher told you that you'd never be a writer. And you're like, well, I can't always speak on every stage, but I need to get my message out. How do I get in a book? And how do I get over that? So I like to highlight these moments where it wasn't all easy peasy lines right in front of you, but I want to know what was difficult and how you got over it.
Yeah, I had a friend who actually asked me, he was like, I want to do speaking as well, but I'm afraid like I'll have an anxiety attack on stage. Yeah. And I told him like, okay, and he was like, well, wouldn't that be embarrassing? And I was like, so, okay, maybe if it is, congratulations, you have been the most embarrassed you're ever going to be on a stage. So everything after that is going to be easier for you to do. But also, like, we're all humans. So what are you afraid of? Do you think someone's going to like point and Nelson Muntz, ha ha? Like, I don't think that's going to happen. So if anything, it probably builds more credibility within your audience and within your base to be willing to be vulnerable and go out there. And even at MIT and within myself as well at the event, you know, there were more than one speaker who you could tell were getting teared up. And yes, because a lot of us, most of us, have some kind of a message where, you know, you're talking about things that make you feel uncomfortable. Do you think it's easy to go up and be like, my mom died when I was 8. I'm 41 years old. I think about it every single day of my life. You know, it's not something that you're just past. And so even right now when we're talking, I could feel myself getting full of that, you know, like emotional energy, as I call it.
Yep.
But that just shows people are passionate about what they're doing. If they're willing to get up there and be vulnerable, that means that they're doing it for the right reasons. It's not they're doing it so that they can get money and amass fortune and fame and people will walk down the streets and know them. So I think, again, it just goes back to like, yes, it's kind of difficult to work yourself through the process of understanding that you're going to have to go be vulnerable and be honest with people that you've never met before. Sometimes the crowd's going to be in the hundreds, the teens, the thousands, maybe if you're lucky enough, the tens of thousands. But if your message is able to help one person, and it doesn't even have to be my message to help someone transform themselves completely. If it just helps one person get through something they're working through at that time, then it was time well spent. And the mental energy and anxiety I expounded on the lead up to doing it was well worth the result that happened at the end.
Definitely. I actually, I don't have any Kleenex, so I have a roll of toilet paper because I know that these conversations will sometimes remind me of something, or a story pops up, and I'm very much the emotional person, easy to cry. So I'm like, I need it next to me. But the first time that I was on stage, I had never told my story before, like to beyond the people who needed to know, like doctors, immediate family. That was it. And then I go and I tell my story, trauma story, on a stage to strangers. I am ugly crying, mascara running down my face on this stage. Just started my business, and I thought, who's going to hire me? I just did that ugliness, and I just had all my dirty laundry kind of aired out to these people. Why would they want to interact with my business now? Which was the complete opposite of the reaction that they gave me. It was all love. It was all hugs. And I think there was only 3 people in the audience who were not the touchy people. And they were like, we're not, but we want to love you. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And that was most of it. It just got better after that.
At the end of the day, we're all human. And again, most people who are coming to see the topic you're talking about are there intentionally. And you have to remember that it's not a situation where like a venue is opening its doors and just like pile in whoever you want, if you're cold, just come in. No, it's people who want to hear the subject that you're talking about. I think we as humans always make things harder on ourselves than it has to be. We've been doing this for generations. We'll continue to do this for generations to come because we just can't seem to snap out of these types of cycles. But yeah, I mean, I think I like being able to say I didn't want to do it, but I did it. And it's also like I talked on a little bit on a reel yesterday. It's about like continuously learning. You have to continuously learn and be willing to do things, because the second you stop learning, you start dying, right? Your body isn't using muscles that it used to use before. And I mean, that's how it all starts to unravel. Look at people like Joe Paterno, who were taken out of he was a coach for Penn State for like 85% of his life. And after being forced into resignation because of some of the dirty things that happened underneath him, he was dead within a matter of weeks because his body wasn't functioning in the routine that it was used to. And so I think if, we have to just continuously be wanting to learn, advance ourselves, become a better version of ourselves tomorrow than we are today.
So we have about a minute and a half left, but I want to make sure that we know where to find you and your favorite way to communicate.
Well, you can find me. I have a website. It's themicroshift.com. And I believe I'm the Microshift on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. I'll be starting a podcast next week to get more valuable, long content out there. And yeah, I'm excited for what the future holds with both speaking, coaching, and the podcast.
Nice. So with the few seconds that we have left, I like to hold space just in case there's anything on your mind or in your heart that you need to share. So what would you love to leave people with?
Just be good people, help people with no anticipation for getting anything in return. Just leave the world in a better place every day. If you can exit a day and feel like you contributed to helping make this earth a better place, then you're doing life right.
Aw, I love that. So then
I love that too, Nick. And Ohio is near and dear to my heart. All my kids were born in Ohio, so but now we live in Canada. But I love your message, and I'm sorry that you lost your mom. And I just wanted to say that to you because I think that it's difficult to lose a parent, and I'm sorry that happened to you. But I'm so grateful to see you and hear your story on the other side. And I love that you want to talk to men, because men and women are different. And I know we fight for equality, but we're different. We communicate differently, and we think differently, and we connect differently. And I think it's so important for, men to be able to talk to men, and for young men to have vulnerable, real men. And I also love, people are so much in survival mode, and especially, I said Ohio's near and dear to my heart. I lived there for many years, and that survival mode that we were all in the late 90s and 2000s, it just, it eroded to where everyone was just thinking about, like, how do I survive the next day? And you're right. If we could just start, paying for the, I love to pay for the person behind me at Starbucks, or, help, hold doors open, just those random acts of kindness. If we do come together, we can just save the world.
Aw. So I do have to cut us off just to make sure that the conversation isn't cut off for online TV. So I do want to say that this is the official close. Thank you so much, Nick, for being here with us.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. And hopefully we could talk again in the future.
Yeah. So we do have a few more minutes that we can play together, but I just needed to make sure that that little section isn't going to be mid-sentence
Sure.
cut off for you. But we can play a bit here. So with the little bit of time that we have, I like to hold this space for reflections within the conversation. Gail, I'm going to start with you this time, since you were right here. What's something that stood out to you in our conversation today?
I already blurted it all out because I wanted it to come out on the on the live stream so people could hear.
Well, we're still live.
I think that you have a really great message, and I'm just grateful to be able to co-host here and hear you and meet you today.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that for sure.
you,
My takeaway, is I need better internet. It was very, very disruptive to have to deal. This is, I've always told people, and I know that I'm talking again, but it is what it is. I view my speaking engagements like 65% speaking, 35% stand-up, right? I like to be witty, on topic. I like to laugh because there's so much heaviness in life that it feels good to just have a little bit of lightness pumped into it. But I think my takeaway from all of this is just, it is such an important thing right now for all of us to just be willing to get the help, to be someone that people can look to and deliver a message that needs to be heard, even when, people might not want to hear it. Just continue to stand there and say it, because eventually someone will say, you know what, I can't keep doing things the same way I'm doing it. I need to make a change, not just for myself, but for my family, my friends, and everyone around me.
It's true. It's so very true. The takeaway that I took from our conversation was that I am curious if all the interviews today are going to be much the same, but with you and with our last guest, getting connected with Corey and bLU Talks was kind of one of those synchronistic things. You didn't mean to. It just kind of happened. The universe was like, bam, and it was in your face. I love that part. That, and I do really like that your end message is just be good people, with no anticipation of return. If we can keep that energy going, not just during the COVID stuff when we were kind of forced into treating human beings a little nicer because we were all upset and overwhelmed, but to maintain that and to grow that and amplify that, that's so much what we need. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep giving that message. And like I said, I'm very thankful to have a platform like this to be able to start to talk about the things that are near and dear to me. And, I want to continue to do that as far into the future as I can.
Well, thank you again, Nick. Good to see you. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
And we do have our next guest behind the scenes. Bhavya, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. Yay! Hi, Bhavya.
Hi, how are you?
Good. It's been a while. I missed you. I've been hiding for a while.
Oh, honey, I hope all's well. But we
All's
do
well
need
as
time.
well. The hiding was mostly like, oh, gotta like research and triage, I guess is the best way to explain that. But everything's better. That's all good. Story for another time. But I want to focus back here on you. I think you know how this works.
Yes, I've done it twice.
Yeah, I have my opening question. I'm pretty sure you've answered it before, but I'm still going to ask it again because I like to see the progression and maybe how your mind has shifted a little.
Yeah.
So, Bhavya, if you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Authentic,
Mm-hmm.
heart-led, resilient.
That was quick. Resilient. Okay, so authentic, heart-led, and resilient. Of course, the follow-up is how do those 3 words, authentic, heart-led, and resilient, how do they play a key role in the core message that you have for people?
Well, that's what my essence is. So when it comes to leading from your essence, I don't think mind has to participate, because when you are heart-led, you will always be authentic. And when you are authentic, obviously, the resilience comes in because you are here to serve a purpose and you are here for a message. So when you're standing in your truth, I think all these combine.
Stand. And we've heard a lot about truth today. I like how the conversations keep doing this, blend into each other. So those are my only 2 formal questions. The rest is just curiosity, but I want to know what has led you into this message of leading from your essence, that standing in your truth and authenticity. Where did that come from?
That came from my personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, abuse being a big part of it from childhood. And for the listeners or whoever is watching, abuse is something that kind of makes us shrink.
Mm.
So I had these visibility wounds because coming from abuse, I always thought there was something wrong with me. And I'm not talking about somebody, cursing at me or something. I went through different types of abuse. And I just want to say a trigger warning in case, somebody's listening and they have been on a similar path as me. Childhood abuse, and I'm talking about sexual abuse, started very early when I was like 7, 8 years old. And I am in my late 50s. So at that time, we didn't have that kind of exposure. There was no internet. Nobody talked about any of this. So I grew up thinking that there was something wrong with me. So I wanted to hide. In fact, this is what I prayed for as a child. I wanted to be invisible because I felt when people noticed me, somehow manipulation and abuse, like that was the pattern. So it started very early from there. And then, I thought somehow that marriage, because I come from originally from India, the arranged marriage might lead to this, because when you don't know somebody, you can't love somebody, then you have to force everything. So this was my train of thought. And based on this, I was very adamant. I didn't want to go in for arranged marriage. So my parents, thankfully, my family, my parents were my biggest support network. So I'm blessed and I'm grateful for that. And just remind me if I forget, I have a side note on this one for people who might not have a supportive family. Okay.
Oh, yep.
So going from there, my parents, like I had to convince them, went in for a marriage that was of my choice. The guy was of my choice, but obviously that pattern was there. So it continued, went into emotional abuse. And then finally, in like 7 years, physical abuse followed. I was married for 9 years. And I have two beautiful daughters. They're all grown up now. But then, the physical abuse, when it came to that, then I had to take a stand. I had to make a decision because I didn't want my daughters to think that this was the way women were to be treated. And I thought it was my responsibility as a parent because I had brought them into this world. So that is when I decided, and I'm highlighting the big parts of my life. The abuse was continuing, the smaller parts of it because I became a people pleaser. And I just wanted to be everything that everybody wanted me to be because I thought that was the only way I would be accepted. That was the only way I would fit in. So I took a very big stand. I filed for a divorce, which was unheard of in those times because women, they were supposed to stay in the relationships. And believe me, my relatives told me, they tried to brainwash me and they tried to tell me, it's okay, he's your husband, so what if he beats you up? But things went out of hand when he forcefully took my younger one, who was only 2.5 at that time. So, somehow I think a mom's strength, and I know, Laura, you can relate to that. And Gail, if you have children, I'm sure you can too. I think, and I'm a Leo by birth sign. So, it's a lioness in me kind of woke up. And I wanted a divorce, which he didn't make it easy for me. So even divorce by mutual consent, it took 2 years, which normally it does not. It's a 6 months to a year, process. And during this time, I didn't have any money because I was the main breadwinner for the family, and even when I was married. And now that this was happening, his family was influential. So wherever I worked, they knew the higher ups, and it became very difficult for me. So this is when I just took a leap of faith. I requested my parents to give me, to finance my trip, to give me enough money so I could go, like leave India, come to North America, first US. And then for a day, I think I came to visit Canada because I got the visas. So I requested them. I wanted to see what was out there and what I could, the possibilities basically. And that kind of, and I really worked hard. I have to mention this here because, by the way, a little bit of my story is also in my book, just a plug in here.
It's downstairs, or I would show it. I gave it to my daughter to read.
Oh, you did? I hope you liked it. It's, it's very raw. It's
Yep.
very vulnerable. I felt like, there was nothing to hide. And, I'm sure there are women like me who are struggling. And because at that time I felt I was alone.
Yep.
And I didn't have any support. So I took a leap of faith. And I mean, here I am, 23 years from the time I took that leap of faith. And so coming from that place, that trauma, I always felt insufficient. I always felt I had to do more. And I took it upon myself, this responsibility that I have to set a good example for my daughters. I have to give them a normal life that any child would get when they have two parents. So with that kind of pressure, and I have learned, so I don't put that pressure on me anymore, but under that pressure, thankfully, I performed well. Yeah, so, that's where that journey was. And this is where I am now. And I'm sorry, Laura, I don't even know if I answered your question.
No, well, the questions are more or less like telling your story because there's always a reason why we do what we do. And so when I ask that opening question of, please tell me how you want the world to describe you, it tells me how you want to show up in the world, how you relate with other people, what kinds of messages you are attracted to, what kind of work you are probably doing, so that when we start to get into these conversations, I already have a little inkling.
Mhm.
Right. And so then these stories just solidify what it was I was already thinking. And then I'm just celebrating you behind the scenes and going, yes, I saw that coming. Woo! But I do have to tell you that when your book came out and you were like, help me become #1 bestseller. And I was like, totally. And I bought your book. I had bought another book about worthiness because that's the main thing I was struggling with at the time. And it was Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima. I read all that book, fine and dandy, but sometimes you need to hear things on the same topic, but from somebody else with a different perspective.
Yes.
And so I will read 100 articles before I ever read one book, because that's the way that my mind works. So when I read your book, you helped me in the way that you described worthiness for you and your experience. You helped to solidify my understanding of what worthiness actually meant to me, to the point that I started contacting people in January of this year, just a few, and then I ran out of time because it's like, there's so many more, where I'm like, I need more of you in my life. And that's when I realized, but they're not doing anything for me right now. I haven't even talked to them in forever. I'm not following them. I didn't buy their stuff. Like, I'm messaging them because I just want to be in their presence with no other need from that. And that's when I realized that's what worthiness really is. It's not the asking of all the other things, which I'm so used to. Just like you said in your book, like the achievements, the expectations of other people have of you. That's not my worth. My worth is my existence and who I am at my core, not how useful I could be to somebody. That's going to make me cry because it still hits home. Am I a good mom? Am I a good host? Am I a good speaker? Am I a good wife? Et cetera, et cetera. All the roles that we play that you so clearly outlined in all of your journey.
Yeah, it's the
Oh.
labels. We fall for the labels, and then we
Yep.
just try to limit ourselves to fit into those labels. But we are more than all of that. Like, I'm not just my story. It's
Nope.
just a very tiny part of who I am.
Mhm.
It's the foundation, that I built on.
My favorite part was that you showcased your rebel side, and I very much have a rebel side. So it's like, ooh, you get me. But I'm very much too afraid most of the time to say no, and that no is a complete sentence, to own that worthiness within me first, to have those conversations, or to leave the country, or all the cool things that you did that I'm like, I would never do that.
And I call it a leap of faith because it really was a leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine just packing 2 suitcases and just booking a flight and going to a country where you don't know anybody.
I didn't even like packing a bag and leaving my province for 2 days. Solo.
And I have to share something here. When I came, because I was not prepared, I was literally, so all the doors felt close to me when I was in India because I was getting jobs, but it's like a week, 2 weeks into the job, and the same pattern would start. And that was like the first time I thought it was a coincidence.
Mhm.
But when that happened 2 more times, then I was like, this is not a coincidence. As a parent who has small children, when at 5 or 6 in the evening, your boss tells you, I want this report first thing in the morning, and you work for a global company, to collate that information, to put that into the report, you have to contact all the global locations, which is different time zones. It's not possible. And initially, I used to beat myself up because I'm like, oh, and I was staying late till 8, waiting for, somewhere else to be morning. So, people start work so I can get information. But then that started showing up because I was dropping my children in a daycare. And the daycare has set timings. So they gave me an ultimatum. Either find another daycare or you have to be here by this time. I don't know how it works now, but back then, it didn't work like that in India. They would make somebody wait. So there was like one staff member who was waiting when the parent will come and pick up the kids. It was like that. So, and this is like a long time ago. My daughters are 30 and 28 now. They're all grown up. But it was a different time altogether. When there's a repetition, when there's a pattern, then that this is more than just a boss giving you some, delegating something or giving you some work to do. They're setting you up to fail. So
Yes.
either they fire you or you get so frustrated that you leave. And I ended up leaving both the times because my children were dependent on me. I was already separated. So, in today's time, and when I look back, I'm actually very grateful to all of them. I want to bring this element because when we are playing the victim role, it's very easy to forget our own journey and how far we have come. Yeah. So for me, gratitude was a huge part of it all because that was my spin on things. I was not a victim anymore. I became a survivor. And as I continued with life, I became a thriver. So went one step ahead of surviving as well. And with gratitude, I feel it was easier for me to forgive them. It was easier for me to move on because I was not lugging this burden with me of, oh, this person did this and, I went through this and all that. Yes, it was there. There were, and I will not deny it, there were times, even after I came to Canada, because I had to leave my children there. At that time, international students were not allowed to work. It was not like how it is now. So I had to leave my children with my parents. And there also things didn't work out because I have, you might have read it, Laura, then, I have a sibling. He became he got married, his wife and him, they became very insecure that she's there. And somehow there was this mindset that people who are going abroad are living a very lavish life, which is not the case. Believe me, here we are like, we are there, you have help. People will come and do stuff for you. Here we are our own servants. We do everything, right?
Yep.
And it's because everyone is so on point. There's bigger competition and you have to survive. You have to perform. It's not like you got a job and then, 10 years, 15 years, 17 years in the same job, you go, start your day, do the same thing, and your job is safe. It's not like that. You have to perform. And I was in the hospitality industry and I was in sales. So you can imagine in sales, you have to perform because you have quotas. So somehow people don't look at the whole picture. I feel people see what they want to see. And I mentioned, to remind me as a side note. So
side note for unsupported family.
Yes. One thing I really, really believe is that the universe does not give you more than you can chew. I had a supportive family, but I had opposition from other people. Normally, there's always somewhere where you can find a support network. If it's not family, you might be very lucky to have some good friends. It's always there, but sometimes we are looking in the wrong place. So it's just our outlook and how we are looking at things, because ours is a movie, and in the movie there have to be good people playing good character roles, bad character roles, but everything is actually helping us remember who we truly are. So instead of trying to focus, and that's what I did, so that's what I'm sharing. Once we know who is in on our side, then we need to stop looking for support where there is none, because it's not. There's one more thing I want to say here.
Yeah.
Why do we keep looking for something or looking for support from someone when they are not capable of giving us that thing? We don't learn to move on. We are hooked into that place, and we keep coming back to that over and over and over again, and thinking, I thought this person might have changed. I was just looking for a closure. The person didn't even apologize. And, it's not in them to give to us. So why are we expecting something?
I feel it because you're telling me the truth.
Yeah. So I learned it the hard way. I learned to move on, which used to be very difficult for me, because being a people pleaser, I always went back thinking, what could I have done differently? Maybe if I do this, I will make them happy, and maybe they will like me. They will accept me for who I am.
Yep.
That doesn't happen. Everybody's different. Everybody's perspective and perception and all of that is different. So that's a big lesson that I learned in my life.
Yep. Love all of it. And I cry because it's truthful. And I mostly cry so much because I've held it in for so long that my body's just like, oh, we have an opportunity now. Gosh. So I appreciate when people like you tell the truth of your experience, to tell us the hard things, to show us some of those belief systems that we might not know that we have. And I know that when I start to tear up, it's because that is truthful to me. And maybe I didn't want to see it, or maybe I didn't even know it was there, but it's something that I need to work on. So I want to thank you for bringing up those points, because it helps me see myself better. And I love you for that. So thank you.
No, thank you. So,
But
these
Bhavya,
are yes.
I want to learn a little bit more about how you take this message and how you use it. Because I know a little bit about what you do, but I don't know all of what you do. So give us a little bit, like, how do you use this message now in your work?
So it has been a journey, and I'm sharing this because I was working on myself. I was trying to find answers. I started from a place, and again, coming from India and born in a Hindu Brahmin family. I'm saying this because very culture and religion based upbringing, right? Now everybody talks about karma and yoga and all of that. This was a part. My grandmother used to do yoga, right? This was a part of like a family routine. It was nothing out of the ordinary or something you have to learn. This is something I saw once I was born. So something very natural. Everything like the healing and all of that if you had asked me, you would be doing this like so many years ago, I would have laughed. Teaching Akashic records, I would have laughed. I never wanted to be a teacher because my mom retired as a teacher. I didn't want to be a teacher. So all of this was because I was seeking answers. I wanted to know, why am I being punished? I looked at it as a punishment for a sin I may have committed. Going to, the karma theory, you reap what you sow and all of that. So from childhood only, when all this abuse and everything happened, I thought I was doing something wrong
Yeah.
to invite this kind of behavior. So even as a child, I started observing my behavior. I started observing my reactions, though nobody had told me any of this. So there's a lot of wisdom that comes from, when you do inner work.
Mm-hmm.
It does not come from a book. It does not come from taking a course or a certification and all. I think these are all just, yes, it can set you on a path, start you somewhere, but without inner work, inner journey, I think it's all superficial. I'm being very honest, and I might be saying something contradictory, but this is what is. So, on that path, as I started understanding myself, I also started observing others' behavior. So, while watching how people were reacting to me, what they had gone through right before they behaved in a certain manner to me, it gave me a lot of insight, not only in who I was, but also how people act and react and who people are. And this is a blanket statement because in people, I'm putting everybody who was interacting with me in different social circles, relationships, all of that. So there's one core thing that I discovered. Nobody's actually bad. It's their upbringing, how they learned to fend for themselves, how they were made to feel about themselves. And that is how they act or react or behave with others, because in all of this, they're trying to protect themselves. So imagine everybody trying to protect themselves and becoming islands in themselves.
Yeah.
While they're trying to connect with each other. And that's something very difficult to do. So that's why writing this book for me also was like a Hercules job. It was a long time in making. And I couldn't write it earlier because I didn't want to throw anybody under the bus. So in my own little way, I tried to give a little bit of perspective, where the other person was coming from when they behaved in this manner. And just a side note reminder that this is abuse, and abuse is not right. But the abuser also has gone through certain things to make them who they are, and to have their system set in such a way that, this is how they behave, and they do it in automation. So, on that journey of inner work, started on the healing journey, and things opened up for me magnanimously. I was on this accelerated path. It was like the universe was waiting for me to say yes, and then everything opened up. And literally, like boom boom boom, like things were happening, and things were opening up for me. All that was good, fine and dandy. But I realized that people started coming to me, CEOs, CFOs, and when these people were reaching, they were like obviously in a personal capacity, and you have privacy and all of that. But everybody was dealing with the same things, because even behind these big positions and all, everybody's a human. So these are human struggles that we go through. And that's when I realized. So I was doing Akashic records. I started my journey with Reiki, opened up things for me like in a big way. During my first Reiki attunement, I did astral travel. That was a first for me. I'd never been to Dharamsala, never met the Dalai Lama, but when I got my attunement, that's where I was. I visited it after a few years, but that was the place I saw. And things opened up in a big way. But then when people started coming to me, I felt, these are left brain people. They need hard facts, logical. The work I was doing was energy healing. It was like airy fairy, up there. But I wanted something grounded. And I realized that I was in that loop of healing, you know? It's a
Yes.
continuous journey. It's not like a destination, you've healed and okay, this is all good. It was a journey and I was like in a loop. And then I realized that I need something more than this. So, and I have been on like 30 years on this journey. I can't even count on my fingers how many courses I took, where all I visited, how all things opened up for me. But I
Yeah.
would say on the upwards of 20 for sure. So I was like traveling, and I love to travel, so that helped. Um, so then I had to find like real grounded stuff. And that's when, as I felt it was a universe's way of me to, for more growth, to push myself forward. So I did a 1 year course and I became a certified mastery coach. And this was something that helped me because and that led me to breath work. Then I did a 1 year course, I became a breath work facilitator. So while doing the healing and helping people, I have continued on my own journey as well. It was not like I've done this, so now I'm good, I just have to help others. That was not the case. I continued on my journey because I feel the day I stop learning, it will be the last day of my life. Because we are always in progress, we are always growing. And what that helped me with and this is what I help people with now. Healing is part of what I do. I do astrology, numerology, Akashic record healing. I do multidimensional healing where I'm literally channeling beings. I do all of that. But how I ground it is through what I learned. So these are psychological tools, neuroscience tools, and there's solid research and science behind it. So if I tell you people who are having issues with their lymphatic system, can you imagine deep breathing helps? Because when we take a deep breath, our diaphragm expands. And when it expands, it pushes the core, the lymphatic core here. And when that gets pushed, it gets activated, and that's what helps the whole drainage, the lymphatic drainage to happen. So, I mean, this is just a small thing, but there's like proper evidence. So, what I do now is I combine all of this. So, I do emotional healing, somatic healing, mindset work, mindfulness work. It's so difficult to put all of this in like confusing people. It's like, I have this whole bar. What do you want? They're like, oh my God, I don't know. So that's what I combine when I work one-on-one with people, or even when I'm doing coaching, group cohorts. So I combine this. So astrology, numerology helps because then I know what they were born with. So the gifts they have, which are untapped, and that is available to them. It's like a treasure chest that they have. They might not have opened it yet. So it's already something they have. And then I combine that with whenever they need some sort of healing, because if it's like past life or something coming up, Akashic Records comes in handy at that time. And then the multidimensional healing helps because it's literally, I used to do it in person when we could. And then after COVID, everything moved online. And it is the same way. It's it's very potent, very powerful. So I do that. And then I combine that with all of these other tools. Because healing, until and unless it's rooted here in this moment, we are here on earth because we have a life purpose. We are here to serve, and learn and experience. So the best would be when I say, hi, I don't want to do any of this, I'm healed, okay, I'm ready to come back, but it doesn't work like that. So I bring like a holistic approach where I can help. And that's what my goal is. I help people amplify their presence so they can command their edge and elevate their life. Because none of this is possible if we just be airy fairy and, I'm done. It's not like that. So it has to be rooted. And that's what I do.
See, but now it makes sense because I knew the different tools that you had, and I knew that you were on the healing side. But what I've recently learned hanging out with Shelly lately was that here's my visual for it, the analogy. Healing is like trying to keep a public bathroom clean. It's like, it's never ending. It's just not possible to constantly clean and keep it perfect. So while that's a part of it and there needs to be maintenance there, I can't keep putting my full attention on healing.
Yeah.
I'll never get anywhere.
Yeah.
And as soon as I had that epiphany in my brain, my body was like, oh, I have all this extra energy that I don't have to think about that we can use to put toward other things. And I'm like, this is new. I haven't felt this motivated in a while, and I'm getting things done.
Yeah.
Like, that's a win. So I can totally see how these tools help, not just somebody who's healing, but even in corporate, even those logical left brain thinkers.
Yeah.
You can free up the energy to help you get this stuff done quicker, faster, better.
Yeah. Because we're so focused on healing that we forget to live. Because when you talk about healing, you're healing the past or the consequences of the past.
Yeah.
You're not being present and you are not leading towards the future because you're always looking behind.
Mm-hmm.
Is maintenance.
So good. So we only have a few minutes left. So I want to make sure that we know where to find you and your favorite way to communicate.
Okay. So I'm going to put the link. But, last time I was not able to do that. So this is the link for the book.
If you put it in the public comments, then it'll go on the. Yeah.
Sorry, honey.
No worries. And then because you posted it, they'll know where you are.
Oh, because okay. So that's why I think last time also I wasn't able to do it because it asked me to connect YouTube account.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't post comments to some destinations. Okay. Yeah, you might have to go in afterwards and comment then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
okay.
yeah, I mean, I can put it here if you want to just, I don't know. Can you see my comments though?
I can see your comments in the private chat. But if this is on like online TV and all kinds of different places,
yeah,
then the main one would be the YouTube link afterwards.
Okay. Yeah, because that's what it said. I think that's what happened last time too. It asked me to, it tells me to connect to YouTube.
So you have Kindred Souls with a Z and then an S.com and Bhavya. How do you say your last name? Is it Gaur?
Gaur.
Gaur?
Yeah.
.com. Cool.
Yeah.
That works. Where are you on socials?
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God. I forgot that. How, I'm not good at putting myself out there. Am I? No.
Like, do we just search your name on different socials or is it under your website?
Yes, you can. And it's actually Bhavya Gaur official. Oh. When I was young, there were no Bhavya Gaurs, and now there are so many Bhavya Gaurs. So I'm like, okay. And then I really hope they don't have to go through, a very tough life. So I just send so much love to all Bhavya Gaurs out there.
Yeah. It's all good. So then we have about a minute left. I like to hold this space just in case there's anything in your head or on your heart that you'd like to share. So what would you love to leave people with?
Just love the way you are. You have what you need. Don't look at the world and don't compare yourself because you're not walking their shoes and you're not living their journey. You are perfect the way you are. So love yourself because when you look back and what you're going through today is going to lead you to that tomorrow that right now you can't even imagine. And it's all going to be good. So imagination wise, I'm talking about really good things coming to you. So these are just baby steps that are leading you to where you need to be.
But now I feel it. That's the difference. I feel it, that hope that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So I want to take this moment to say thank you for being here. Always a pleasure. Loved meeting you in person at Harvard. That was so fun. I was like, stranger hugs. Yay.
Yeah. And I'm a hugger. So, I love hugging people. And because a hug, I think, is the best way to connect.
Mm. So then I will call this the official close of the main interview. Thank you. I do invite you to stay for the next, we have 5 minutes. Yes, we're running on time. Because I like this space to be really fun for social media, like reels, little snippets to kind of tease the interview. But I also like to use it as reflection to kind of see how we all felt. So I'm going to start with you this time, Bhavya. What is something that stood out to you during our conversation today?
For everybody, we don't prep for this.
No.
So it's not like there's a questionnaire. So, we ask based on that. This is very spontaneous. And I love that time flies. And it's just because it does not feel like we have to perform or act or, be in a certain way. And we all, including, Gail, Laura, and I, we're just being ourselves and just
Mhm.
present and going with the flow. And I think that is one of the most beautiful things about this space that you hold, Laura, because it flows from the heart.
Aw, thank you. I'm glad that this time it's recorded. I was like, yay, testimonials. That's
Yeah.
the whole point. Like, I know that so many times people may not always be comfortable being vulnerable. And so I want this to feel as human and as loving as possible. Because also in that space, you tend to be more vulnerable. We tend to get more of the truth. And when that comes out, people are open to listening to the other things that you have to say.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I want you to shine because it's so fun to watch people grow. Like, to me, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to see all of that.
Yeah. And it's also, it's human nature.
Yep.
We feel happy when we give.
Yeah.
And I think the take culture came because people, when there's no space to be, that's when people start to, think about themselves and compare and,
Be disconnected. They're disconnected.
yeah. So that's how it is. And no, so you really hold beautiful space. So thank you for that.
So I'm going to share one thing that stood out to me that I'm going to ask Gail. And while Gail does that, I'm just going to take a moment and I'll be right back before we interview our next one. But one of the things that stood out to me is, I'm paraphrasing, but here's what I was thinking. You can't connect if you're too busy protecting. So if I'm constantly, putting up my walls, then I can't let people in because they're walls, not doors.
Yeah.
So I can't do both at the same time. So then now I ask myself, am I protecting or am I connecting? Protecting, connecting. Love that. Okay, Gail, share something that stood out to you, and I will be
I have so many things that there's probably not enough time, but I actually love the fact that you and I grew up in completely different places and completely different, we look like different people, but when we share our stories, they can be very similar. And that's what connects us as human beings, right? When we pass each other on the street, we might think, I don't have anything in common with that person, but we actually have the same stories in completely different parts of the world, in completely different cultures. And it humanizes us because we're all humans and we're all on this little journey together. And I just love that. I think that that's a piece that people miss with that. And then I also, if you're looking for, the other thing that stood out to me is that we all know is that if you're looking for evidence that you're not worthy, you're going to find it every time. But if you look for evidence that you are, you're also going to find that every time. And so you shifted from, that was your journey, is going from evidence that you were not worthy, which I can completely relate to, because I think we're the same age. That's what we were almost brainwashed to do, to that journey of like looking for evidence that we are worthy. So
Yeah.
Loved that. Thank you for the shares. And again, thank you, Bhavya, for being here.
Yeah.
So sweet.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you. I'm happy that, we were able to, and I can see your next guest is online. So take care, ladies. You're doing amazing, and sending you both so much love. Mwah. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
And I do see our next guest behind the scenes. Andrew, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. I like how sometimes I get two and sometimes I get a little sneak thumb up. It's all good.
All good, eh?
It is all good.
Awesome.
So I like to start off every interview in a way that shakes things up. Because typically when we see interviews, we get elevator pitches, and we get this story that we've rehearsed so often that it starts to become impersonal. So what I like to do is I like to be like, and shake things so that I get to know who Andrew is. That's fair. Andrew, as I switch pens again, so I know where my notes start, here's my question for you. If you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Inspiring, empowering, and positive.
Inspiring, empowering, and positive?
Yes.
So my only other question that doesn't change, that's scripted, nothing else, the rest is all casual, is this. So how do those 3 words, inspiring, empowering, and positive, how do they play a key role in the core message that you have for people?
Well, I wasn't inspiring or empowering or positive, so I shifted completely.
Ooh. So what is your core message?
The core message is to just look within yourself and do the work within yourself, and don't be scared of your shadow. Learn to work with your shadow one-on-one.
So do you do a lot of shadow work then?
For myself, yes.
For yourself?
Yeah.
What do you do for other people?
I'm a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner, so I connect them with their subconscious mind.
Do the shadow work. I'm trying to take notes at the same time.
All good.
It's all good.
No rush.
So you said quantum healing?
That's correct.
Now that is a new term for many people. Can you describe to us what that means for you and what that looks like for you?
It's basically shifting timelines. Like our subconscious has lived many lives, and the subconscious will show you those lives in a session with quantum healing.
Ooh, now I have heard of like like timeline jumping, timeline healing. Does it encompass all of that? Like anything to do with the timelines, or is it more specific?
It's mainly the subconscious as the keeper of the records of the soul that's lived for as long as it's lived. So you've been in a past life, Gail's been in a past life, I've been in a past life, and our souls traveled more than once. And part of like what we go through in this life could be from a past life.
Yeah. I'm going to assume that there is a story behind what inspired you to go on this path and not a different path. So can you
could
show
say
us
that?
Yeah,
Sure.
Can you show us a bit about that?
Yeah. So I was in a very dark place for quite so many years. I was in a very reactive relationship. I was toxic too, though. And in 2021, I lost my mother. And it broke me to my core, and something inside of me said enough was enough. So I went down the rabbit hole and I started to research like why two of my coworkers at the time I was working for the railway refused to get a vaccination. So I asked them why, and they said it was infringement to my rights. And I was like, okay. So I went down the rabbit hole and I went to the darkest place of the rabbit hole. And then I met my first holistic healing appointment. And the lady said, let's shift it here. Here's an author. Her name's Dolores Cannon. So I began to read Dolores Cannon's books. And in her sessions, her clients were able to channel people, aka like Nostradamus for one. And in her book, it's called Conversations with Nostradamus. And it just intrigued me more and more. And I wanted to learn about it. So I decided to take the course. And then my first client, doesn't mind me sharing, it's my wife, actually. She was my first client. And my wife is Grenadian and Jamaican. In her past life, she was a male Caucasian Viking. And in this life, she received an injury through a car accident. But in her past life, because she was part of an armory and she was a blacksmith and she was making weapons for people that were harming others, in this life, her injury is paid her karma paying back.
Interesting. That makes me think about, okay, with all my injuries and all the diseases and issues, it's like, what happened in the past life that makes me want to fall apart? Okay, interesting. Do you do that with every client? Like see where those patterns are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I want to know, but also I don't. It's like I do, but I don't. It's kind of scary.
Well, go ahead.
Do you have clients that are like, just don't tell me, like do the healing, but just don't tell me?
Well, here's the thing. I record the session. So afterwards you get to listen to it.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'd want to. We were just laughing with Bhavya because when we interview people and we start to hear the truth, there is an emotional reaction. And for me, half the time, the realization makes me cry. But I'm so grateful at the same time to be able to have that perspective from other people because I wouldn't have seen it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, thank you. So that I can see more of myself. Like that is a huge gift. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. So Andrew, healing the only thing that you do, or have you learned other skills along the way that you pair in with this?
I do breath work, sonic breath work. I'm studying to be a breath work practitioner. I'm also studying to be a neuralistic programmer as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like kind of dabbling in a couple of things, but mainly breath work and meditation is what I do. And with my clients, I kind of try to put them in a safe space where they're comfortable and we kind of get to visualize, because really the part of it is visualizing and practicing your visualization, because the script I read gets you to see a red bird. Can you both, by saying that, ladies, can you see a red bird right now?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I play movies. I can't make it stop. But I also know people that can't visualize at all. How would you work with somebody who cannot visualize?
I kind of walk them through a process where they can visualize what they first see, and then we just give a color to it.
What if they don't see anything? Like usually it's just an emotion, or like they might feel tingling, or they might hear something, but they don't see anything.
Usually when a person can't see, it's because their subconscious isn't ready for them to see it.
Right.
And the subconscious will tell them no during the session. And that's usually when I bring them out. But before that, we usually do an hour interview, or 2-hour interview, to get to know the story and the characters in the story. And just the interview alone is healing for them.
Good. Yeah. Because I always question, I'm very much the opposite end, where if you don't give me something to visualize, I can't understand. But then I'm thinking of this one lady in particular who never gets to visualize anything ever, but yet she gets to have those sensations and those emotions. And I'm like, that's really cool. Part of me wants to know what that's like, but I don't. So it's hard to imagine the exact opposite. Okay, so visualization is a huge part of it, which makes sense to me. Yeah, the red bird. Have you ever tried to do it on yourself? Like, is this
I
the
had
type of
someone do it
practice
to
that
me.
works? Oh,
I
so
had
you
someone
need
do
a
it.
facilitator.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. For those DIY people who tried to do it.
Yeah. No, I had someone do a session on me before I started my healing, just to kind of like get an understanding of it. And what I went through in my childhood was actually my idea. Was all the trauma that I went through was my idea. Because what we don't understand is before we come to being born, we sign a contract. We sign a contract with ourselves that we're going to pay back our karma. This will go with people who are intellectually disabled, people who are like any form of disability. They chose it. It's not something that just randomly happens. They chose it because they wanted to pay back their karma. Because in my past life, I was a German soldier who worked at Auschwitz, and I incinerated people. That was my job.
Oh, wow.
And because I fell in love with a prisoner, and we had a child together, I couldn't do it anymore. So I took my life. And the year that I was born, I have a birthmark exactly where I pointed the gun in my head, because our birthmarks are actually parts of our past life. So you see people with like the birthmarks that cover their arms, they were burned.
I have one on my foot. And
Yeah.
if I squint my eyes like this, it kind of looks like a dragon.
Yeah. That's from a past life.
That's really cool.
You could have got shot. Who knows?
I don't know. I get called a witch a lot because of the red hair, but I'm like, that's this lifetime. I don't know if that was in a past lifetime.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, when you have this type of conversation with people,
Mm-hmm.
where do they usually have the biggest area of tension? Like where they just
Everywhere.
kind of will tune you out. They're like, I don't want to listen.
That's the control aspect. So you have to be willing to surrender. If you're not willing to surrender, then of course the left side of the brain is going to want to take over. And that's mainly your shadow. That's your ego. That's like, nope, we feel like we're in defense, so we are not doing this. But when you surrender, that's when you get the answers you seek. Like the session isn't for me, it's for you. I'm just a facilitator. You do all the work yourself. Like, you have the list of questions for the subconscious that you want to know. And it's up to you whether or not you want to surrender or if you want to stay in control.
It's funny because we just talked about surrender 3 times. I don't know. This is the 4th interview. Yeah. We talked about it as surrender ever since. And before we started today, I was actually listening to a song called Surrender. The synchronicities are crazy, and I absolutely love it. I want to shift a little bit into the ways that you have decided to share your message, because we haven't touched on that a whole lot today. So I want to make sure that we go there.
Sure.
Which ways have you chosen to share your message? Like the typical ones are the speaking, the podcasting, the writing. Do you do any or all of those?
I'm a podcaster. I recently wrote the book, The Enemy Within, Fear is Our Greatest Opponent. And I'm speaking at the Blue Talk. So that'll be my first speaking engagement.
Your first one?
That's my first one. I'm doing something completely out of my comfort zone.
Okay, celebrating you for that.
Thank you.
That's amazing. For all those people watching, like this is what we want to get to. Okay, I want to ask you so many questions about the other ones, but let's come back to this first Blue Talks one.
Sure.
Where are you speaking for
I'm speaking at the University of Alberta.
So U of A? Okay.
Yeah.
U of A. And what was it that inspired you to get over your own tension of not wanting to be in public and speaking, but now you've decided to do it?
I have a phenomenal business coach named Rosalind Fung, who kind of like inspired me to go out of my comfort zone. And she recommended that I try it. And it's interesting because when I spoke to Corey, I couldn't believe that he and I were both from Prince Edward Island. So that was really unreal.
Yes. When Roz did the little group chat and was like, yeah, Andrew's from the East Coast. I was like, I'm listening. Where from?
Born and raised Prince Edward Island.
Yeah, I grew up 10-minute drive from the ferry to PEI. Can't quite throw a baseball at it. It's a little far over the ocean.
Yeah.
But yeah, I used to look out and just see the island on the sunny days, not the cloudy days. Cool. Okay, so you're talking for the first time. Did you ever see yourself speaking, or is this one of those moments where you're like, I never thought this would be possible?
I never see myself as a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner. Let's put it that way. I kind of like shifted.
What did you do before?
I worked for the railway.
Yes, you did mention that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love when things shift.
Yeah.
Especially when you see somebody who's more on the stereotypical logical side and the jobs that tend to go with that type of thinking. And then it feels like they flop to the other side and they're like, I'm this spiritual being. But that, to me, is extra special because now you can see both sides.
That's right.
And I find that those people tend to be the bridges. It's like, how do we relate the logic to the woo-woo, which for me is just science that somebody hasn't accepted yet, because there's always something there.
Definitely.
That's really cool. Because now part of your message is going to be being that bridge.
That's correct.
Fun. You also mentioned podcasting. How long have you been podcasting?
It's about a year now.
Oh, so you're pretty new at it.
Yes, I am.
And you made it past 10 episodes?
I'm 50 some episodes now.
Good, because most people only make it to 10 and then they don't keep going.
I was going to be a radio broadcaster when I was a child, and that was my goal. That was my dream. But I had people tell me that I wasn't going to amount to anything, and it just kind of stuck with me. And then when I went on this path, while I was getting my clients for my quantum healing, I thought it'd be fun to start a podcast.
Gail, do you see the same thing that I do, that he was interested in the energy and the tuning and all of that before he got into energy healing? Okay, to me, this is really funny. That's perfect. You dreamed of being a radio announcer. Okay, there's probably a connection there too, though. What inspired you to dream of being a radio announcer?
Well, the only way I learned how to read was through sports statistics, and I really enjoyed sports. So I wanted to be an analyst, and I would always play sports. And while I was playing them, I would announce myself as like, here comes so-and-so to the bat, or here goes so-and-so down the ice, or vice versa. And I always enjoyed watching like TSN. Like I loved Jay Onright and Dan O'Toole. They were like, every day I would watch them for like hours, and I just wanted to be them. But then I also enjoyed music too. So I wanted to be on the radio. So it was kind of a two-edged sword. It was either or, but unfortunately, when I tried to apply at schools, they were like, nope, you're not good enough. Nope, you're not smart enough. You're wasting your time. So I was like, okay, so this is the reality. So instead I shifted and I went into pipe fitting, and I became a pipe fitter. And then I worked in the oil and gas sector, and then the oil and gas decided to crash. So the next best thing was the railway. So I jumped on the railway.
I can see how that worked, though. And I can see the inspiration behind those choices. That's fun. Okay, so you didn't become a radio announcer.
No.
But it's a different world now, and you can become whatever you want to now, because, you know, at that time when you were making those decisions, you know, even 15 years ago, we didn't see this, right? I didn't anyway. Now you have the power to put yourself in any place that you want to be.
Absolutely.
Okay, so speaking, podcasting. Do you do a lot of guest podcasting? Obviously, you're on one right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I do a lot of guest podcasting. I was on Positive Talk Radio the other day.
Yes.
Yeah, enjoyed talking to them. Usually I've been on like I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Mindful Journey or Soul Speaks or Soul
Oh, that sounds
Sparks.
familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use this platform called Podmatch.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's how I get to be guests, but that's how I also get all my guests.
Oh.
Yeah.
I haven't used it in a while. When I was really into podcasts, it was probably a decade ago, and there wasn't a whole lot of content back then. I mean, there was, but there wasn't the amount of podcasts that there are now. But at this point, I'm like, I already listened to all of them. So my brain's like, these new ones don't exist. But now that I have the mental capacity to listen to them again, I'm like, let's listen to them while I'm cooking, while I'm cleaning, while I'm doing something that doesn't require me reading or writing, like something physical. So I'll garden because I'm trying to redo the front. And I've got podcasts going, and it's so nice to be able to hear the voices of somebody who makes me think differently, who expands my mind. Otherwise, my mind will just try to do all of it, and then it never stops, and I can't sleep. So it's very helpful.
That's fair.
So speaking of podcasting, do you write at all?
I wrote a book recently and I journal.
You journal. Ah, You're one of those mastery people that actually know how to journal. Do you do it daily?
Yeah, I try to do it daily. There'll be times where I'll get out of routine, but mainly I do it daily. Yes.
I'm good at note taking. I'm not so good at journaling. What does journaling do for you as somebody who finds it really hard?
I just kind of like, I focus on my dreams. My dreams have been sending me messages for so long, and I'm just trying to understand them because I have some very, very violent dreams where I usually die in them. And so I try to understand what the whole process and what the concept behind my dream is and what the subconscious is trying to tell me.
I do have that kind of book. I had one that I would keep next to the bed. And then every morning when I woke up, I would write the key pieces. Otherwise, it would take me forever of my dream. And then I would underline the key visual elements and the key emotional elements so that all I needed to do was look up the underlined words and not everything. And then I would write the definitions of what they were underneath.
That's fair.
So that when things happened in my life or a similar dream would pop up, I could just go back and be like, oh, yeah, it's related to that one. Okay, I see my progression now. It's very helpful. But you mentioned writing in a book. Is it a collaborative book or is it a solo book?
It's my book. It's my story along with all the tools and techniques I've picked up along my journey.
Do you have it with you? Can we see it?
Sure do. Absolutely.
Well, I'm a visual person, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
Ooh. I like that cover.
Thank you.
It kind of reminds me of one of the Oracle decks that I have, just in the way that it's stylized. Because there's a lot of meaning in all of the individual images. Yeah, that's really cool.
Thank you.
Did you always see yourself as a writer?
Oh gosh, no.
That's what I was hoping you would say.
Oh no, like I didn't see myself as any of this. Like I didn't see myself being married. I didn't see myself being successful. I didn't see myself. I thought I was going to be dead, to be honest with you. I nearly died like 5 times. So I was waiting for my death to come, really.
It's interesting because we had so many people today who had a gradual shift sort of towards where they were going to go. And I feel like, Andrew, you had like a quicker shift. Is that,
it was kind of like getting hit in the back of the head with a 2x4, more or less. Like,
so was it
yeah, it was, so when I was 27, I fell 27 feet head first. And I made the conscious decision to not panic before I hit the ground. And it saved my life.
Mhm.
I broke the bone that goes here, and I shattered this wrist, and these two fingers were dislocated.
Wow.
You think I would have learned my lesson then? No. Later on, I shouldn't have been driving when I was driving because I was tired and exhausted. I put my mother's car through a telephone pole. I walked away from that. Don't know how. And then the wonderful thing about working in the oil and gas sector is you got to deal with this thing called H2S. Well, I got knocked down by that. That was fun. So that was, yeah. And then probably the fourth opportunity was we were driving home from a long shift, because when you work on the railway, if you're working out of town, your drives can be from 5 to 14 hours
Ooh.
driving. Yeah. And when you work for the railway, it's when you work, it's only on train time. So when there's no trains, that's when you can work. So I could be working 1 a.m. and then have to drive home the next day. So we were driving home, and it was in the middle of winter, and we hit a patch of black ice. And I don't know what saved us, but we stopped from sliding into a semi.
Ooh.
Still don't understand how.
Yep.
So you think I would have learned that from those lessons? No. My mom was basically like the tipping point to like, because I was in that relationship that was toxic, because we were both toxic. We trauma bonded. We had each other. We mirrored each other's wounds. We were each other's mirrors. And we got comfortable in chaos. We thought that was connection. And when my mom died, that was the tipping point of, you've got to change, man, or you're going to die. I was like, okay. So I made the conscious decision to change. I quit drinking. I quit smoking. I quit smoking drugs. I completely shifted. I stopped going to the gym, and I started to meditate. I started to do yoga because that's what my body told me to do. And then I just kept listening to my body. And the beautiful thing was, during a meditation, I was able to visit my mother in the spiritual realm. And she told me she was proud of me. And that's what gave me closure. And that's what really woke me up and showed me that, okay, there's something more to life than what I've been doing. So I'm like, I need to change. And I made that change because I had to, in that sense, because I had no choice in the matter. And here I am today.
Aw, I'm so glad that you shared that extra part of your story,
Mhm.
because those are the moments that people find hard to identify or hard to get to. They just think that all of a sudden a light switch is going to shift in their life and that they're just going to all of a sudden make a decision. That's not quite what happens. There's something that you say to yourself, never again. That's the moment where you make the conscious shift. And you just described to us your never again moment. You said you quit drinking and doing drugs and you went to the gym and started meditating. It's like, now you start talking about the habits that shift and the thoughts that shift and the feelings that shift and the beliefs that shift. Just as you talk about with the quantum healing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So I love how it all blends in. It all reconnects. And that, okay, I want to know a little bit more about when your mom said during a meditation, I'm proud of you. What did that mean for you?
It gave me closure. It gave me an understanding that I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
And that there's more to this world than we really understand.
Mhm.
And that when we actually just surrender and let ourselves tap in, that we can experience anything.
Mhm.
And it gave me the understanding that I would like to do this with my clients so they can tap in and understand that they can find their healing and that they can communicate with a lost loved one, that they don't have to mourn them. Because it turns out when we mourn someone, we actually keep them here. We don't let them transition the way they're supposed to.
Yeah. Every time I see a crow, I think of a friend of mine who passed.
Mm-hmm.
Because right as I got the news, I watched a crow pass. And then I got a text on my phone. And then I watched as all the crows decided to come over and support this crow who was already dead at this point. I was like, wow. And then they followed me around for a little bit because I'm on the side of the street watching this whole thing take place. And they would squawk at me. And then this one started following me every day for a month after that. So I just assumed, I was like, oh, that must be my friend. And it felt very reassuring. Yeah.
Definitely.
So now every time I see a crow, it's like, yep, there's my friend. I love you too. And then I keep walking.
Cool. Love that.
Exactly. Okay, so podcasting, speaking, writing, we got all three of those. But now I want to go a little bit deeper.
Okay.
Because those aren't the only ways to share our message. And we all know that.
Mm-hmm.
But if there was a way for you to share your message that you haven't done yet, that may be crazy cool, let's just pretend that you could flick a light switch and it happened. What way would you love to share your message?
What way would I love to share my message?
Yeah. Just showing people that there's more ways than we think of.
I would have to say globally.
Well, hopefully, of course.
Yeah. I would have to say globally because I've never done it globally. Like, I've done it in person with friends and family, but like the speaking engagement will be my first time. I do it with the podcast. I've done it with the book. So mainly just showing people that their trauma is actually not their curse, but actually their blessing in disguise. And then it's bringing you to the person you were meant to be. And what my journey in life, this life, was supposed to be for me to learn compassion. Well, I learned the total opposite thing. I learned how to be self-absorbed, toxic, overreactive, people-pleasing. Those are all the skills I learned. But what I was supposed to learn was compassionate and unconditional love. So for those of you out there right now who are struggling with being self-absorbed, reactive, and people-pleasing, you're just learning skills that are going to bring you to something more. And to be patient with what's going on inside of you, and to trust yourself, and to trust the process and what the universe has aligned for you.
Yep. Trusting the process can be hard when, how do I word this nicely? It feels like you've been trained that the process doesn't even exist.
That's right.
Right. We're just a product of our environment, right?
Yep.
And we're not paying attention.
No.
Yep.
Well, we're brainwashed too, and we have all these distractions, like people that watch the news. That's a form of neuralistic programming. Exactly. Yeah. But people still watch it, and they still they fear monger each other. And you got to pay attention. It's like when you become consciously aware of just the people around you and what they're saying, and how just their words can influence you, because words are like spells. And we don't see that. So I don't know if you guys have ever read the book Messages in the Water.
No.
By Mauricio Yamamoto. Well, he developed this way of understanding water, and how water is actually not from Earth. It's from another planet. And our bodies are 80% water. And the way we talk to ourselves is how we become ill, is how we become sore, is how we become scared. Because our body is not only a frequency, it is water. So when you talk to it in a positive and loving manner, guess what? You feel well. You feel healthy. You don't feel like you're sad. You don't feel like you're unappreciated. So what he did is he would talk to water and then freeze it. And the water would build these wonderful creations. But if he talked poorly to the water, it would turn black and turn into sludge. Just like our bodies. That's where the real cancer lies. That's where the real diseases lie. Our illnesses, our injuries, is a communication sensory system that we don't really become aware with. So your injuries, that's your body telling you to slow down, chill out, relax. Because there's no such thing as an accident.
No.
Nope.
Yeah.
It's your body telling you to chill out.
Yeah. A little over a year ago, I couldn't walk for a month. And that's when I finally realized that the message was slow down. We can't keep up. All your compensations are no longer working. You're not listening. And so it got to the point where I couldn't walk for almost a month.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I hear you now. I apologize. It was too late, but you love and accept me. I love and accept you. Let's move forward.
That's right.
Yeah. I don't remember my question now.
That's all good.
Oh, no, I was going to share. Okay. Have you ever watched Frozen? Like the Disney movie
of course.
Frozen? Okay.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Have you, Gail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have? Do you remember that one scene where Olaf, the little snowman, is saying how water holds memory?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course, they don't show you that until the end of the movie, what that actually means. But as soon as I heard that, I'm like, wait a second, does it? Or is this just a cartoon messing with me? Does it? I think it might. And I kept questioning. And then at the end of the movie, of course, they do something where it proves that water shows or holds memory.
It's just like sound too with water.
Yeah. And then I looked it up, and that's exactly what I saw was, I can't remember the name of the gentleman that you just said, but I saw the images of the water and talking nicely to it and not nicely to it, and the different crystallizations that happen, and even with plant auras and all kinds of things, you could see and visualize the difference. Oh, wow, this is really cool. So for those who don't believe in the energy, just go look at the research. Like there's lots there.
Yeah. And even money is energy.
Yeah.
The mic that I'm talking on right now, it's energy. Like everything is energy. And at one point, like you talk about plant auras, we were plants. You talk about that crow, we were a crow at one point. Some of my clients, when they do sessions, they have visions where they're a bird.
Oh yeah.
Or a bug. Even rocks.
Rocks. I was a man a few nights ago in one of my dreams, and I had like cool dreads, and I was just playing with the dreads the whole time. They felt really cool. It was just nice to have that different experience. So Andrew, we're about the time where I ask you where we find you, and of course your favorite way to communicate.
Oh, you can find me on Instagram, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. My book's on Amazon. You can find me on my email too, btwa2024@gmail.com. Reach out if you want to chat. I always love to connect with new people.
Awesome. And then I do like to hold space at the end of an interview, just in case there's something on your mind or in your heart that you want to share. So if there's something that you want to leave people with, what might that be?
Just believe in yourself. Even when times get tough, even when you think your back's against the wall, just continue to believe. Yes, you may hit rock bottom, but you can't go any lower than rock bottom. So now it's your time to pull yourself up, change the course of your life, and just be the beautiful soul you were meant to be.
Aw. Well, as my cat is deciding to be cute and noisy. Well, that was really quick. Andrew, I just want to reflect back where we started. The inspiring, the empowering, and the positive. I feel as though those words came out in our conversation today, and it gave us some insight of who you are, and not just what you do, but how you show up in the world.
Yeah. Well, I try to show up for myself that way every day. So if I show up for myself that way, then I show up for others that way, because we are all energetically connected. So what I feel, you feel, everybody feels it. And that's why it's so easy to show empathy to every single person, no matter what they've done in this life, because of what I've done in my past lives. Plus, everybody is unconsciously aware of what they're doing because they don't know they don't know their actual selves. Like nobody really does. We just know the noise and the chaos and the confusion. We don't actually know what's going on inside of us.
A plethora of complicated everything.
More or less. Yeah.
So, Andrew, I want to thank you for being here with us. I will call this the official close of your interview. So
Perfect.
many thanks. Now, I do invite you to stay for the next few minutes because I like to use this as a little fun social media teaser for the interview, but also to have a little bit of time to reflect on the conversation that we had. So, Gail, I would love to start with you. I like how I randomly pick on you sometimes. Gail,
It's okay.
can you share with us something that stood out to you during our conversation with Andrew today?
Well, yeah, I mean, just the power of our subconscious mind. I mean, that's my passion is mindset, and because that's the only thing that we control, but how our subconscious is so powerful, and we don't even know like how powerful that is, or and how it protects us, or it, you know, it's got all the power over us and everything. And I love that words are spells, because that is so true. Like we are, you know, and the other thing is I live right next to a lake in BC. I live on one of the biggest lakes in the province, which is I'm so grateful for every day. But you know, when we change ourselves and we do this work, it creates a ripple. And I never realized, and I'm 55 years old, till I threw a rock in the lake, that the ripples get bigger as they move away. Like I think we always thought, I don't know, I don't know what I thought about ripples, but when I think about, you know, when you're doing the work on yourself, that ripple is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just keeps going.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. My wife and I, we were in Grenada and we got to see the water and the energy in that water. You're talking about ripples. Well, holy cow, that was insane. And then I've also like seen people take tuning forks and put it on water, and that's just flawless. Like how sound is like truly aligned with us too. Even like certain sounds can, do you know, you get those chills? That's your sensory, that's your body telling you, okay, we love this. Like keep it going. Like, yeah, no, I love that. On
that note, there's a new show on Netflix called K-pop Demon Hunters. And there's
heard of that.
My daughter wants to be in a K-pop band, so we're everything K-pop. But we watched the movie, and one of the songs in it, it's called Golden. It has not left my head since the first time we saw it a week ago. Then she gets me to watch it again last night, and it's just made it worse.
It's usually supposed to do the opposite effect when you listen to it again.
But every time I listen to it, like I get goosebumps everywhere.
Well,
and so if the song is constantly in my head, I'm like, can I like have a break for my skin, please?
Yeah, it's because your soul was at that point. It's like my wife, she really loves the song Valhalla Calling because of her past life. She was a Viking. So every time she hears that song, it literally speaks to her soul. It's like me with soca music. When we were down in Grenada, I fell in love with soca music. And it's because my soul, and apparently this is interesting that I didn't know, most people that are redheads were black in a past life. So you were black in a past life. That would explain your dreads.
That would explain the dream a couple nights ago. Yeah. I also had really cool clothes. So
there you go.
Okay. So one of the things that stood out to me. Wait, did I ask you yet? What stood out to you, Andrew?
What stood out to me talking to both of you?
I
just love the energy and how bubbly and happy you both are. You didn't speak much though, Gail. I would have loved to hear more from you.
I'm just co-hosting.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You're very good at being quiet. Let's put it that way. I'd be like, I want to say something.
I heard that Gail's just going to do the whole next interview by herself.
Oh, yeah. She looks very ecstatic.
I'm always down for a new adventure.
Yeah.
New adventure. Okay. The thing that stood out to me, Andrew, was, okay, you said that your trauma is not your curse, but it's your blessing in disguise. That is like a wonderful explanation for all of those mess to message people. We keep thinking it's a struggle when we've learned the lessons and now we're trying to teach it. But yeah, it doesn't have to hold us back. It can be magical. Hence me saying to speak from your sparkle. So I love it. Do you have anything that stood out to you, Andrew? We have about 30 seconds.
Oh yeah, I mean, like the questions were very. I could feel it almost. I could feel it. Parts of the questions when you were talking to me, it was like, oh, okay, this is a reflective moment that I have to go back to again. So that's kind of cool. It's like when I wrote my book, I had to relive my trauma again. So that was even more fun. So yeah, yeah, relive it because you have to visualize everything. And my wife was even telling me, like in the last chapter, she's like, how you like talked about your mom and everything, like dying was like, because it was the most traumatic thing. I mean, you stand and sit in the hospital for 8 hours and you watch someone die in front of you. That is like horrific.
Yeah.
And it haunted me. So I wrote it the way that I expressed it in my book, and I had to relive that moment again. And it used to tear me up every time, but now it's like, since my mom visiting me, it kind of gave me that closure that I know she's one of my spirit guides, and I'll meet her eventually on the other side. And that I've learned to not be afraid of death. Like, if that's one thing I could if people can take away from this, is don't be afraid of death. Like, just don't, because when you're afraid of something as significant as death, that's when you give away all control. That's when you give control to someone else and you're not in control of you. Mm-hmm. So don't be scared, because we can go at any point, because we choose when we die. Nobody chooses it for us. We choose it ourselves.
Nice. Thank you, Andrew. It was wonderful chatting with you. We have to
chatting with both of you.
Bye, Andrew.
Hi, nice meeting you all.
And we do have our next guest behind the scenes. Vanessa, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I want to say hello, beautiful lady. I just like sing it. Because when I saw your branding photo, I was like, I want that outfit. I want that backdrop. I want to look that pretty. it was gorgeous.
I mean, you can. Like, some of my dresses were rented. You can rent them.
So. Nah, I'd probably just make my own. But the last time I made my own dress was my wedding. So it's been a little while.
I like to sew as well. So like,
do you?
Yeah, I do. I have a sewing machine. I think the last time I made a dress was a long time ago too. Like maybe like a full dress, like 10 years ago. And I did like lace over like silk, and that's a lot of work. That's hard.
Silk.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, it was difficult.
We may have to come back to that, because I usually start off interviews just by shaking things up. Because I don't want your elevator pitches. I don't want your story you've told 1,000 times. I want to get to know Vanessa. Mm-hmm. So here's my question that's not so secret. Anyway, I need a new page. Okay, so if you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
She has integrity, I would say. She's radiant, and she's integrated. I think those would be the 3.
Integrated. There. Okay, so the only other question I have planned for you is, how do those 3 words, integrity, radiant, and integrated, how do they play a key role in the core message that you have for people?
I think integrity, like often we think about integrity as, do we kind of keep our word, or, we sometimes think of it about integrity as like, do we pay our bills on time, or do we have integrity with what we say? And do the actions match the words, like often, and that is a part of integrity. But when I'm speaking about integrity here, I'm really speaking about integrity in terms of like, so my messaging is really about living a soul-aligned life. And so the integrity is actually not to other people or other things, although our choices do impact others. And I do think we should, of course, consider our impact on others. The integrity I'm speaking about here is about integrity to one's soul. So integrity meaning like, do your actions match, instead of do your actions match your words, it's like, do your actions match what you came here to do on the planet? So do your actions kind of match your soul aligned mission? And so being in integrity sometimes can mean that you said you would do something and you realize it's out of alignment with what you're meant to do, and you would change your mind and shift that. And sometimes that can really ruffle feathers. And so I feel like integrity here I'm speaking about is about integrity to our soul and what we came here to do. Radiant is really about, I feel like radiance is like when you're just like full of life, and when you've kind of mastered your energy and your use of energy, and then you kind of have like this infinite well of energy you can access. And I think that is like about being really embodied with like your life force energy. And I think energy mastery is being able to master how you use your energy, where you direct your attention, all of this. And I think that's what makes you radiant, is when you have mastered how to use your life force energy. So you kind of have like access to this like bottomless pit of energy at all times. And you just feel, alive, right? It's about like really feeling alive. And I feel like that's radiates out to others, and hopefully positively, and impacts others and maybe brightens their day too. And then the last one, integrated, it's actually a compliment someone gave to me recently, and I was like, that is actually the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. And I was like, I'm gonna claim that one. And integrated is about being a whole being. So that means that we look at our shadow aspects. We are doing the work of excavating the ways that maybe we self-sabotage, or even, aspects of like trauma from childhood, like inner child healing, wounding, like all of these, maybe generational impacts that we've taken on, both gifts and the traumas. And we're kind of doing all the work of integrating that into wholeness, so that we can show up as like a whole being. And I know this is a lifelong journey. So, but just so that we're kind of always bringing parts of ourselves back into wholeness. And that's where that word comes from, and why that's meaningful to me, and how I guide others. I see myself as always guiding others to kind of love and bring in and integrate all aspects of themselves.
I have one comment, and then I'm going to playfully force Gail to like continue with the interview, just because I joked about it last time. So when you were talking about living soul aligned life, embodying your life force energy, that moment, the life force energy, it reminded me of a reel that I saw recently about how within cells, you have your protons, your neutrons, your electrons. And in protons, there's something called quarks. Within a quark, they have these little pieces that are swayed by a strong force. And I was like, wait a second. So everything is controlled by the force? And so the Star Wars, the force, like that's now what I'm picturing everybody doing, is like trying to like pull everything. So when I think of energy work for the last couple of days, this is what I'm picturing in my mind, is like Darth Vader doing quantum healing.
I mean, that's one way of looking at the force for sure. I mean, I think everything is energy, to what you're speaking about. Everything is energy. I studied biological engineering. I've kind of been like always curious. Yes, like that's a longer part of the story, but basically, energy is everything. And when I went into engineering, I really remember in thermodynamics class kind of looking at like these laws of thermodynamics and asking, like, okay, energy is not created nor destroyed, right? Like it only changes form. And I think about that often, because it's like what we don't realize is like our focus, our attention, right? Like if we're focusing over here, we are giving that energy, literally, we are giving it our life force energy. And so I think a huge part of being human, especially at this day and age in technology, and just even with AI coming forward, even more prominently, I think beginning to learn how to master our energy and how we use it. Of course, this is more individual instead of like more like quantum healing. I think that's a really important part of what it means to be human, because our life force energy is actually our sexual energy. It's our energy to create, right? To create a human, or to create a business, to create a wonderful family dinner, to create this moment, you know, the three of us here connecting, and those that will or are listening, right? It's like, it's a co-creative experience, and we show up, and what we bring is what then manifests. And I think, you know, we are here, and, you know, it's kind of like, not to bring it to like religious things, but it's like, they say like we're created to likeness of God. I'm not like religious in that sense, but it's like all of these teachings and all of the religious, all of the different religions of the world kind of talk about creator, right? Who's creator? And so it's like, even in the indigenous, or like, you know, speak about creator, some connect to like Mother Earth. And it's like, it's all about what we are co-creating. And I think no matter what walk of life you come at from it, whether it's scientific, whether it's religious, whether it's spiritual, you can understand that we are here to create. And in this age of like technology and the illusions and the deep fakes that are going to be even stronger, I think, you know, people kind of can manage where you direct your energy, where you direct your attention, what you think you should do, or what should be the best way for you to spend your day or your time. And I think that's why that piece is really important at this time. Yeah.
Totally.
Yes. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's interesting with the Darth Vader. It's like an interesting way to look at it for sure.
Can you imagine Darth Vader meditating?
Sorry?
I said, can you imagine Darth Vader meditating with crystals? Like,
I mean, I can. I can imagine that for sure. I can definitely imagine that. That'd be kind of funny. Yeah.
Okay, Gail, I'm going to playfully put my hands behind my back.
No, Vanessa, I'd like to just hear more about like how you got on this journey. Like I feel like there's kind of a story behind like going from being an engineer or pursuing that to then where you are at right now. What changed in your life that would make you want to do what you're doing now and take this pivot?
Yeah.
Or is it a pivot, or is it just
not a pivot? And I love that question. You're like the first person to ask it that way. And everyone sees this as a pivot. It's a question I get often because we still live in a world of like duality where people are like, science and spirituality are these separate things. Like, I do not see it this way at all. So for me, like from a very young age, I was just like very curious person. I always thought like I'd kind of like help people heal. It's like my grandmother needed a knee. I was like, I'm going to be a knee surgeon. Then my like aunt had cancer, and I'm like, I'm going to find the cure for cancer. So I was just kind of like, you have something you're going through. I want to help heal that. And so I think there was just like always this curiosity. Like, remember one of my favorite memories with my mom was like, we went to this fair and they had this like children's medical encyclopedia. It was like in Spanish. I didn't even speak Spanish at the time yet. And I was like, I begged my mom to buy it, and she did. And so then I couldn't read it. So then I forced my cousin to read me the children's medical encyclopedia. So like, that was just kind of me like in childhood, just to like kind of paint a picture. It was kind of like I kind of felt like I didn't really belong. Like I was born in Aruba. I just kind of felt strange, like if that makes sense. And I just kind of walked to the beat of my own drum. And as I got older, I took like biology, and like when I was 13, and I had a biology teacher. She was like, I would have been a genetic scientist if I could have been. And I was like, what is that? And the genome hadn't been typed yet. So I was just like very curious, what makes us who we are? Like, is it, genetics? Like, is it just predestined? Like it's in our genes? Like that's just all it is? Like, or is it our environment? Like, is it psychological? Which one is it? Like, I don't know. And so when I applied to schools, I actually applied psychology and I applied biological engineering. It was like in this attempt to answer this question of like who we are and why we're here and all of this. And I had like a very spiritual experience when I was like 8 years old. I was kind of asking myself, why are we here? I was going through a hard time, not personally, just like within my family. Not just my mom was going through a tough relationship, and I was just like, what is the point of this? Like, I don't get it. And I actually saw like the sky open up, and to what I know is like star people, their like bodies were full of stars, show up, and they basically just said to me, Vanessa, this is all an illusion. And I basically freaked out, and I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, it's like a video game. And I actually hated video games growing up. So I was like, oh no. I was like, please don't tell me
Great.
that.
Yeah.
Like, great. I hate this, like, even more. And then I was like, I was so scared. I was like, please go away and let me just like, I don't want to see these things ever again, which obviously now I do. But so for like decades, I told nobody about that experience. But that moment really awakened this like curiosity of like this big curiosity of who we are and why we're here. But then I did kind of go down the science route, and I was just like kept asking questions, and my engineering professors couldn't answer them. It was super frustrating. I started taking some like philosophy classes and like physics and quantum physics and just, I don't know. And then eventually I was always doing like, I was wanting to work for myself. I had like a bunch of tech startups while having corporate jobs. And then through a series of like unfortunate events, although I would call them the most fortunate now, but at the time it was extremely excruciating journey. I like quit my corporate job to work on a tech startup. The couple decided to get a divorce after like 10 years of being married. That fell apart about a month after I quit that. And it just kind of hit me in the face where I was like, why am I chasing like a big tech exit to make a ton of money to do what I do now? It doesn't work. Like, I'm basically just trying to like have a big exit because I didn't believe I could make money doing what I do. I just couldn't imagine it. And I just wanted to have a retreat property and all of this. And so then when that happened, then in the end, I was like, it was kind of a crazy story. We had to sell it. We actually got somebody to bring in like a deal to buy out the tech company for $2.5 million, but he wouldn't sign it because he didn't want her to have half. And so that just fell apart. And when that happened, I was like doing a TEDx on it. Like, it was just like, you were like visually, let's call it, appearing like you're at the top of something. And it was just like crumbling, like all of it was crumbling underneath. I owned 2 properties. I was like, how am I going to carry all this? Like, I don't even know. And so it was like what you would call the dark night of the soul. It just kind of was like, you have no choice but to do this. So it was like, funny enough, we were pitching at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, like for V2V Ventures. And I took like, it was like a speed dating for mentors, like with mentors. I found this one mentor who was like a purpose guide. And I was like, they're not going to notice if I'm like gone for 7 minutes. These things are 7 minutes long. I'm going to take 7 minutes and do something for myself. I went and I met him. And it's like, as this stuff was crashing down, he started like a purpose challenge, a 21-day purpose challenge. I did that. And then after that, I went on to lead it with him. And then while this stuff fell apart, I just kind of went like deeply inward. I sold my condo in Toronto. I moved to Collingwood where my other property was. And I just began like meditating and just going more deeply into it. I was always very intuitive, but this was like out of necessity and out of sheer just like pain. I had no option really but to go inward. And Blue Mountain's a beautiful place to do that. They're sacred lands. And yeah, I just kind of went inward. And then I eventually met a mentor that I worked with for 6 or 7 years. And I learned a lot of energy work and generational healing from her. And then I just kept going. And I've been doing this full time for 10 years now. So yeah, so it was quite the journey. So, and I say like, when you work for the universe, like you're never out of a job, because when I stopped chasing the money, thinking the money would allow me to do what I always wanted to do, I turned that around. That was like the mindset shift where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do what I love. And I trust that I'll be taken care of. Like, and it was it was very frightening to do that, because it was just kind of like, I'm Canadian now, but I, you know, was here on my own, like, and I still don't have family here in Canada. So it was just like, I don't have anything to fall back on if it doesn't work. But I think in some ways that fire itself is what led to me being able to make it all work, you know? So yeah, so I know that's a long journey. There's lots of pieces in there too I left out, but yeah, that's basically how I kind of got to, in a tight nutshell, like what I do now, which is like help people just integrate themselves, heal from their trauma and their conditioning, and just live the life they came here to live, right? And it's they get to do it a lot more smoothly than I did. That's for sure. I did it the clunky way.
I was just gonna say, most of us do it the clunky way, because it doesn't. At the end, it looks like we went like this, but it really was like all upside down, like a roller coaster, one of those crazy ones. But it sounds like you were always a healer.
Yes.
And you were trying to get there, and then you got there. Like,
yes. Yeah. And I think part of it is because like my family's very intuitive. I always say, like, in our family, we argue about who's more intuitive. Like, it's like we still argue because people go, "Oh, you're so healed. Like, do you guys still argue?" It's like, yeah, we do, just about different things. And so there was like that journey, and it took a lot of trials and tribulations. For a while, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to become a medical doctor," like, right? Like, and so then I was like, well, I don't really take medications, so why would I want to prescribe them? Like, that's not really my path. So then I was like, I'm going to be a naturopathic doctor. I got into school for that, and I was like, I started doing that. And then I'm kind of like a visionary in the sense I can like really see things way in advance. Like when I was started doing naturopathic medicine, like it was only like allowed in 13 states in the US and like 2 provinces in Canada. And I was just like, I was seeing it. I'm like, they're going to become more and more regulated, and I'm going to be limited by this at some point. So funny enough, like I just decided not to do that. Like, which was kind of crazy because I'd never chosen to not like do something I started. So that's what I kind of mean when we go back to that word integrity, right? It's just kind of like, that was kind of crazy for me, like, just because I was like top of my engineering class, valedictorian, like to be like, oh, you get into this program and then you're just like, actually, I don't think this is going to lead me to where I need to go. Like, these were kind of like pivotal moments, like that I even was going against like how I saw my own self, like, and you know, so I think it takes that, like, sometimes, you know, as you were talking about, like, it's kind of appears clunky or is clunky, and then it looks like it's a smooth journey. I feel like as long as you kind of like fall forward, if that makes sense, it's kind of like all that really matters. It's like we actually learn a lot more from, let's call it what appears to be a mistake, but then when you look back, you're like, actually, no, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have even gone here. So to just be really grateful for those moments, right? So yeah,
I call them course corrections. You know, like it's just a little like, oh, well, I'm going to bump you that way, and I'm going to bump you this way, and we're just trying to get to the same place.
Yeah, I agree with you in that sense. It's kind of like if you're playing bowling, but you got those bumpers on, right? It's just like, boom, but it's like, okay, it's true. It's like, oh, this is not it. And so it's kind of like they always say, like, rejection, right, is just redirection. So it really is that. And I think if you can reframe it in those ways, like you're saying, is it reduces the suffering in the moment. Then when you look back, you're like, oh, that was actually like exactly what brought me onto my path. It's like, then you can heal. It's like, I'm not even mad at that person who wouldn't sign that deal of 2.5 million, because I'm like, oh, thank you. If you didn't do that, I wouldn't have done this. Like, I am so deeply grateful. Like, thank you so much for showing up in those ways, in those moments. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the reframe needs to be a redistribution of what we think the rules are. So when we think of like a straight path, we hope life is going to be a straight, smooth path. A wheel is perfect for that. But if the road is clunky in half circles, then if you have a triangular wheel, probably goes over that nicely, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, who are you for the path? How can we take the two different things and line them up so that they fit together in integrity? Right? And they integrate. Like, I just love that the words keep coming up.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It is. It's like we are fed often in society. And I think part of that reasoning too that our mind thinks that is because we go through the schooling system, and I'm really grateful for school because I really enjoyed it, but I think some people don't do well in it. I don't think it's structured well for everybody, and now I just think it's outdated altogether. But I think we're just fed like everyone does the same thing. Everyone should perform the same way in all the same areas up until like 18, and then all of a sudden now it's like, boom, here you go. And it's like, it's like out in the world, it's like it doesn't actually give you the skills to discover what it is that's the right path for you. And I think in the ways that I guide people is to realize that it's like, what is your path, not what is my path. Like people who work with me, yes, they might be inspired by me and things like that, but it's not about becoming like another version of me, right? Like it has nothing to do with me at all. And I think that that's quite unique in the way that I guide and lead, and even in the way that I teach. Like I teach others to do what I do, and it's like I'm not trying to make you like a mini version of me. Like I want you to be you. Like that's the thing. And it's like that you're talking about, like having that journey not be a straight line. It's like maybe we're not even meant for a straight line. I think it's all the healings are spirals, and some of us will have like the triangular wheel or the whatever we need. We come in exactly into the bodies we're meant to come into to do the things we're meant to, or I believe we're born in the places we're meant to support our soul mission, that we, all of these aspects really come in that way together. And it's kind of like unearthing the puzzles of your own self, right? Yeah.
I love a good puzzle.
I do.
So
I feel like we have a lot in common. I'm like sewing and puzzles. Like I'm kind of like an old soul that way.
I took engineering too, so I did start my career.
Oh my God, no way. Okay. That's amazing.
But it's funny because you were on the top end and realized that it wasn't for you. And I kind of mentally quit halfway through because I realized that it wasn't for me. Like my path in architecture wasn't going to work. So I'm like, why am I bothering to do all this stuff and have zero life if this isn't the path that I'm going to do? I just think it's hilarious.
I kind of in some ways wish like I had done what you did, because when I was in my first year, I actually said to like this girl I really looked up to, she was a cluster leader, and then I became one, which is like you kind of help new students. Yeah. I was like, no, this is not what I wanted to learn about. I was like in my first year, I was like, this is not it. And they were all like, what? Like it's going to get so much better in second year. You're going to love it. It's going to be great. Like you're going to learn a lot more of the things you want. First year is really general. And I had like done these university level courses in high school. So I was really bored in first year. Like I was just like, what is this? So I was like, fine, I'll do second year. Did second year. It was more interesting and way harder, but I was still like, no, this is still not it, guys. Like I love it, but this is not going to give me the answers I'm seeking. But then it was so hard. Like second year was so difficult that after that, I was like, I am getting this degree. If it's like the last thing I do, I have to get this degree. I don't care anymore. This is too much suffering for me to not leave with this thing. And yeah, so I think it would have been better off if I just kind of like did what you did. I think it would have had like a lot more rest, a lot more fun. Like,
oh no, our first year was your second year.
Oh, okay.
It was intense. We had 7 or 8 courses per semester.
Yes, same.
And we were working 12-hour days just to try to get homework done, let alone projects. And we're like, this is not sustainable.
I slept 3 hours a night for 4 years. I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating by any means. And I remember one day I was so tired. I actually like went to brush my teeth and I put my face wash on my toothbrush and I didn't even notice. And I was like, why is my toothpaste sinking into my toothbrush? And it's like, I realized like, this is not it. Like, and this brings this other piece of like how I help people too, because a lot of my clients will do their purpose work, their
Yes.
purpose discovery, and like live in alignment. They'll quit their jobs and they'll start their own businesses. But like one of my big like factors or ways to measure my own success or like how I guide people is to have ease. Like that is like my life KPI to pick one corporate. It's like it's ease, because that was a life I don't want to do. As I'm sure we can just probably stop talking about that now.
Moving on. Okay.
No.
Because you're the last interview of the day, I want to shift it a little. I love this conversation, but I want to know from you, where do you see this work? Since you mentioned earlier that you're like the long-term vision person, so you're the perfect person to ask. Where do you see this work going? I know that the general conversation is like, let's heal. Some people talk about transformation. Some people talk about the whole and complete version of you and what that looks like. But where do you see this conversation going, and where the focus is going to be in, I don't know, like 5-ish years, near-ish future, but still far out?
Yeah, I do think it's like healing, transformation, all that. But in 5 years, I think it already is starting. You can see this. I'm going to talk about it where it's at right now first, but like where it's kind of the big thing you see emerging, and there's a reason for it, is somatics, soma, the body, right? And embodiment. So that's where we're at. Like, if you're in the space, you feel like it's everywhere, but if you're not in the space, you might not be aware of it, but it's like, that's where it is. And the reason why that's so important in this moment is because what's going to be happening in the world is that, you know, we're going to have AI, and we're going to have sentient AI be embodied in robotics, right? And so we're going to have this like sentient AI in literally like a human form. And so when we have that in a human form, AI kind of begins, and robotics and all that together begins to act as a mirror. So it's like we're going to actually be coming into what I'm calling a collective awakening. So in the past, have we had awakening journeys? Yes, like the 60s and 70s were a big time for that, but they were like individualized awakenings. Like you'd kind of go up to like, you know, be a monk in the mountains, like meditate all day by yourself, do dark meditation, do all these things. They still play a role. But now we're going through a collective awakening as a humanity all together. And that's why you're seeing like AI aggregate data information. It's acting as a collective mirror for us. And so because they're going to become embodied, it's going to invite us into an opportunity to become more embodied in ourselves. Of course, some people will choose to not be embodied. Some people will choose, like literally, as we talk about, like being like hooked into the matrix, except it's not going to be hooked into the matrix like the movie where you're just like with the neural link and just like actually plugged in, lying down and like with the VR. What's actually happening is we are actually at a time where, when often people ask me about like World War III, like, is it going to happen? Is World War III going to happen? It's like World War III is the war on our consciousness. And so it's really embodiment. There's a lot we are not aware of about our bodies and how they operate. And in an attempt to create and recreate it, we're going to learn more about what it means to be human. So this is like a really deep opportunity to actually understand ourselves collectively on a larger scale. So that's where we're at the precipice of that now. And we're going to have like things like artificial wombs. People are going to like begin to have like children without needing a surrogate to carry it. And there's already companies building that, companies like Vitara. It's like they're going to start with like babies that are born premature, and this is all going to be taking place, right? So that's one piece that's kind of starting now. That's why it's really important to work on embodiment right now. And then the next part that's coming is about like really energy mastery, like I told you about earlier, and our intuition, because it's actually going to be really hard to discern what's real and what isn't. And so in 5 years, even sooner than that, but in 5 years, these are the things that I think are important to develop: emotional intelligence, somatics and embodiment, energy mastery, and intuition. And that's actually the school that I'm building, is to teach those skills that we need to thrive in the future.
I love all of that. As somebody who loves to see patterns, that is exactly what I've been seeing. Is we are, ever since COVID, the general public has finally seen more of what we've been seeing for a while, is that we need to treat each other like human beings. So now, what is it meaning to be a human being? How do we differentiate ourselves from something like AI and all of that artificial technology, so that we can feel like we still have a place in the world, both with each other and with everything that we're creating? At the same time as, how do we heal all that crap that we're still holding on to, that's preventing us from doing all of this?
And I think those two things are the same, right? Like when you're saying, like, how do we heal, like, what's in the past, like, and how do we find our place in, like, this world that becomes artificial? It's like, I think those two things are the same journey. It's like, it's not like this extra burden, because it's like, imagine, right? If everything shows up in your world as like fake, right? It's like in your face and it's artificial. What is the invitation? The invitation is to become more real, right? Like that is the awakening. So, so I actually see it as like this beautiful divine orchestration of events to invite us to become more human, and to define for us as a collective what that even means. Like, what do we even want? And it requires all that healing work of all that shadow and the integration to then actually be able to show up with each other in like loving, honoring ways. And I just hope that humanity, like the intenseness of that dark night of the soul, right? We all know it, that clunky journey, right? Like that intenseness of the dark night of the soul, it's like, it's going to be as intense as we need it to be. So that's the part where I'm like, guys, can we do our work now? We've been doing it here, right? And so that's the invitation. It's like, and people can get really scared by the things I'm saying, like, and I don't want people to get scared. This is not about like fear, because sometimes people go, oh my God, this is bigger than me. AI is moving faster than me. I give up. I can't even bother. You don't have to do anything. Just do your own inner work. That's it. You do your own inner work. Everybody does their own inner work. That's it. It's like you're at a potluck. Everyone wash their own dish. We're all done. Like, right? Like, that's it. That's all you have to do. Don't stress out about the whole collective. Just wash your dish and we're good. Right?
That's what I was thinking for the analogy earlier about how healing felt like constantly trying to wash a public bathroom. If everybody just cleaned up after themselves, then everything will be fine. Okay, so we're at the time now where I need to ask you, where do we find you, and what is your favorite way to communicate?
My favorite way to communicate? What do you mean? Like how people can reach me, or like what?
Yeah. So I am not an email person. Do not send me an email. Like you can send it, but I'm probably not opening it ever.
Fair enough. Okay, I love it. Love this question. Okay, so you can find me at VanessaBenlolo.com. So my name. And Soul Guiding Institute website's not up yet. You can find me on YouTube, on Instagram. Like those are probably the two next social medias, let's call it. I'm a pretty, like I do share on there more regularly now. But anyways, so that's the places to find me. I would say you can find me on LinkedIn, all these other things, Twitter, but I'm just really not on there. So like YouTube and Instagram and my website. And if you want to communicate with me, you can, to be honest, I'm really private. So like most people send me voice notes, but that's only if you had my number. So that's like for my clients. So the best thing to do if you want to connect with me and be supported by me is to go to my website and click, there's like a consult there. You can book a 30-minute consult with me and you can work with me in that way. You can send me a DM. That's a great way to, like, if you're not currently working with me, I would say that's the best way. I love to send and receive voice notes. I would say that's my favorite way to communicate. And the reason why that is because I think in text we miss a lot of like tonality and inflection and joy and connection. And so that's my favorite way, but please do not email me. That is like my least favorite. I'm there with you. It's like, I would rather it come some other way, but if it's business inquiry, then please do email me. But that's because I have an assistant that helps me with that. So,
okay. So we have about 30 seconds and I like
Yes.
to hold space. What would you love to leave people with today?
I mean, I'd love to leave people with joy, but I think that, and like radiance and brightness, in terms of like the essence of today. But I think as a message, I think it's really about just, do your inner work, but see your life as revealing what that is that's needed. So it's not even that you have to go like seek it out, because often we're like, we need to go like seek it out somewhere. Like we need to do plant medicine. We need to like do this. We need to do that. It's not. It's like you are here on the planet. You came here with a purpose, and your soul and your journey is initiating you itself. And so it's about like really looking at each moment that's unfolding in your life and kind of going, how is this experience that I'm in? Oh, I'm getting goosebumps. How is this experience that I'm in? What is it here initiating? Like, what is it here to show you? And what are you being invited to initiate yourself through? So it's like you might be birthing your own courage, or you might be birthing your ability to be vulnerable, or you might be birthing, your own experience of like, healing generational wounds, but it's gonna show you. So it's like, and in doing this work, your life just becomes a lot more easy. It's got more ease, and that's the message I'd like to leave.
I do have to call this the end of your main interview. So thank you so much for being here, Vanessa.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you and the work that you do as well, both of you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Now we do have about 3.5 minutes left of the time slot. That's the main one. We had to be over within 42 minutes or less. I was like, oh my God, we're kind of close. But this is our playtime. What I like to do at the end of every interview is have a little bit of social media teasers at the same time as reflecting on our conversation. So Vanessa, I'm going to start with you. What is one thing that stood out to you in our conversation today?
I think what I loved about the conversation, what stood out, is like what you mentioned when you asked me like these 3 words. And it's interesting how whenever we start something, right, it's almost like we place these intentions in, and then it like weaves. It's that when we talked about this energetic intention and energy mastery, right, it's kind of like we brought these 3 words in, and they just like interwove throughout this entire conversation. And I think that's what stood out to me the most about how you lead and you hold space. And that just really resonant for me. And I love living life through those experiences. And I feel like kind of my message at the end is very similar to that. It's kind of noticing what shows up in life and how that magic unfolds. So I loved that.
Thank you. Gail, what about you? What's something that stood out to you in our conversation with Vanessa?
Well, it's probably like off, whatever. But it, like, I recently moved and I live right next to the water on a lake in BC, surrounded by the trees and all that stuff. And when you said you left your place in Toronto and then now you're in Collingwood, what AI is going to do, and I'm looking at it from the positive, is that it's going to allow us to like get back to nature and back to being in places where we want to be, and give us the time to then become the humans that we're supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually live in Victoria, BC now. That was like an old story from like 15 years ago when that first happened, right? So I live in Victoria now, but
you got away from that concrete, and you got
that was like 2015. I was like, I'm out, peace. So yes, absolutely. I love that connection that we have to being near the water. Yeah.
So there were a couple things that stood out to me. The first one was when you said to master your energy and how you use it, but then you also described your sexual energy being your creative energy. And as somebody who is going through menopause for the last umpteen years, perimenopause, before the menopause, like we're getting TMI for some people. At this point, like the sexual drive goes way down, but yet my creativity has gone way up. And sometimes I forget that those two energies are one and the same. Like it's not gone, it is redirected.
It is. And I would say often women kind of think in that moment, like where it's like perimenopause, they go, oh, my sexual energy is down. It's because of the perimenopause. But it's actually not. It can be that because we kind of go through, Joseph Campbell talks about going through the hero's journey, our purpose out in the world, and then the heroine's journey, the inward journey. And so often, women are initiated through their bodies. That's why the embodiment piece is so important too. And we go through getting our menstruation the first time, then birth if we have children, then menopause. Menopause is the initiation of life for women into this deeper intuitive knowing and creation, like kind of this crone energy, right? It's like beautiful. They are the oracles. Like that is the initiation of it. And so if in those moments the sexual energy goes down, it's often redirected to guiding others, leading others, using their wisdom. And so your sexual energy is not gone. It is just you are being masterful in directing it in the ways that you're wanting to direct it. And we can do that at any point in our lives, right? So yeah, I love that.
It's so good. Okay. So at this point, I know that the time slot is over. So if you have somewhere to be, feel free and you can leave at this point. We will not be offended. Gail and I, and if you'd like to join us, we're going to end the day. It usually takes about 10 minutes. So we'll recap some of the things that stood out to us during the day. We'll recap some of the patterns that we've seen within and without conversations, weaving in the conversations, as well as reminding people to join us tomorrow. So would you like to join us for the next few minutes?
I'll stay. I've got 10 minutes. I think
Okay.
the next at 11:30, so I'm good.
So then I'll start with this. Gail, what is something that stood out over the whole course of the day? We had a lot of conversations, but what's something that you're going to be taking away from what we spoke about today?
Well, that we are all on a journey and that something happens in our life that brings us to a place where we feel that we started the day with this question, which was like, how did I end up here? And then we all get to that place of like, how did I end up here? And then we all have to kind of figure out, and take those course corrections until we're where we are now. And it's the journey, and everybody's journey is unique and different and everything. But as humans, that's just how it works. You're on a journey, you started, everything seems the way it's supposed to be. And then something shifts and forces us to like look inward. And it's just great to be around people that look inward as opposed to the people who they can't. They don't have the tools, and they don't have the community. They don't have what they need. But the crazy thing is we have to do it. So even if you had the community and you had people to tell you exactly what to do in those moments, you're the one that has to do it. You're the one that has to look deep inside and be like, okay, where am I? What is my next step? And how do I get myself out of here? And then share it with other people.
Yes. Vanessa, I know you got to watch a little bit before you came on stage with us, but what is something that you're taking away from all of today?
I think what I'm taking away is just how everything is interconnected. Like I kind of felt that. I listened to the one right before me just a little bit as I hopped on, and yeah, it's just like this thread of connection, connecting people and experiences, right? People might be all over the world, but there's like this human quality of the journey, right? Even though we talked about the journey looking different, and Gail just mentioned here, about there's always something, an impetus or those bumpers, but it's like the human experience. I think that's what I'm taking away from it, is like that we are all on the journey, and that there is all interconnected. And even if the journey looks different, there's parts that are similar, and we connect on those points. And I really love that, kind of like the way we're here connecting today, right? It's like, it's a series of events that brings people together. And I love that. Yeah.
A series of positive events.
Exactly. I think all events are positive. Like, I think even those painful ones I talked about are like, thank you.
Because in the moment they feel like the worst, but then when you have the knowledge later, you're like, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though it could be a really traumatic, terrible, awful thing, you know, on the spectrum of whatever your experiences are.
Yeah.
I hear you. Yes, I agree.
Today, I'm going to take away that one of our patterns actually of conversation today was the energy that is released and now available after we have that energy of surrendering. Like, oh, I can redistribute that somewhere else that's more useful. It's just been a reminder of the journey that I've had in the last couple of weeks. It's like, yeah, I've released so much energy that now I have it to refocus somewhere else. And now I'm getting so much done that I'm proud of myself. Celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
So then what do you see, and it's just free game at this point, what did you see as some of the patterns that came up in conversation? So I mentioned the energy of surrender. That came up in almost every conversation today. What else did you see?
Me? I can go. Is that it's always a pattern, right? It's always a, you know, something happens and then, you know, you make a decision that you need to make a change. And then you have these levels of like where you get your power back, you know, like where you get to making decisions and living a life intentionally. And then that gives you your power back. And then now you have faith in yourself. And then once you have faith in yourself, you're really just kind of unstoppable. And you are working for the universe, and you are never going to have to work again, because that's the end game, is having faith in yourself. If we were in a video game, which I don't like video games either, but I had those moments in my life where I'm like, am I in a game? Like, is this?
Yes. I feel like this. I'm like, who signed me up to play video games? If I knew this, I would have maybe not done it. And I also wonder if I signed up for every experience in this life too. I'm like, oh wow, I got the VIP package. Okay.
Yeah.
That positions me to support people really well. But I also hear, Laura, what you're sharing here is like in the surrender. I always see life as like, you know, if something huge gets taken away or leaves all of a sudden, or is not working out, or is becoming really difficult, it's like, as soon as you let that go, it's like, even in those moments, we can go, wow, something really big is leaving or shifting. I would say to myself now, I'm like, oh, something really great is coming in. Because if something really this big has to go, it's kind of like if you had like a house and you had to get rid of a ton of stuff because you had something even more amazing coming in. That's kind of how I see it. I just kind of go,
like making room.
Really big leaves now. I'm like, yay, you know, go ahead.
Okay, so a couple more patterns that I saw was the amount of synchronicities through people's conversation, how we're connected, especially how you're connected to Corey and Blue Talks and how you get into it. Just mind-blowing. The surrender. We have what we need. We just need to keep going through it. And that trauma is opportunity. We certainly don't see it as such in the moment, but behind it all, it feels like opportunity. So at this point, I want to thank my guest host, Gail. Thank you so much for being here with me. To all of our guests, like Vanessa, who we got to interview, as well as those watching live and on the replay. And of course, everywhere else that you see us. So much love to all of you. Mwah. Thank you so much for being here. Tomorrow we'll be back for, what's the day on the calendar? Is today
17th.
Wednesday?
It's Wednesday, the 16th of July.
Tomorrow is day 4. So Thursday is day 4 of Blue Talk's Amplify Your Message. We will come back, same bat channel, same bat time. So 10 a.m. Eastern until just before 2 p.m. Eastern. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube. We hope to see you tomorrow for more interviews, more laughs, more tears, more everything, more sweat because of the heat wave. It's all good. I will see you tomorrow. Again, much love. Bye, everyone. And now when I click the button, I sing and I dance. I go end stream.